That this war with the American people need to understand that this war with Iran would be far more devastating, far more costly than anything that we ever saw in Iraq. This is why it's so important that every one of us, every single American, stand up and say, no war with Iran.
A war with Iran would be far more costly and far more devastating than anything that we experienced in Iraq. A war with Iran would make the war in Iraq look like a cakewalk. The neocon war hawks that surround President Trump have made no secret about what their intentions are to further this regime change effort, both in Venezuela as well as in Iran.
President Trump campaigned against regime change wars when he ran for president, but now he bows to the wishes of the neocons who surround him, clamoring for regime change wars that he claimed to oppose, this time in Venezuela and in Iran.
This brings the United States closer than ever to war against Iran, which will be absolutely disastrous for our country, for Israel, for Iran, the Middle East, Europe, and the world.
I've introduced legislation to deal with some of these kinds of abuses called the No More Presidential Wars Act. And this legislation would make it an impeachable offense for any president to bypass Congress and to unilaterally go and start waging a war in another country. American people need to understand that this war with
Truth time. TruthWire. It's a beautiful Wednesday. Raining like cats and dogs out here, but you can see for me, I can always make it shine. Guys, welcome to the show. This is the TruthWire. I'm one of your hosts, Greg Pasta.
And I'm Fiorella.
And we got Jayme CheeseSlice on the ones and twos, the Technique 1200s. Thank you guys, everybody, for your support. Thank you, everybody, for joining on in. Our Give, Send, Go is still growing because of your help, and I thank you, but I also say that it's desperately needed at this time. The way the media is, fam, I don't know if you got to catch any of the Tulsi Gabbard clip we played. We played the old Tulsi on stage, on the debate stage, and today, the DNI, which we thought stood for Do Not Invite, the DNI director came on today and pretty much just spewed all the CIA and war propaganda talking points. She did say something that I think it was really effective. She did say today that China is seeking a peaceful reunion with Taiwan, but they'll use military force if necessary. So that's what we got going early this morning. And your favorite fan, Kash Patel, there with his cross-eyes, was just sitting there trying to look all important as the FBI director. But there's a lot of stuff going on, and I think we need truthful media out there to bring people the truth. We had Danny Shaw on last week talking about Cuba, fam, and what we saw in the media over the last couple of days when it comes to Cuba. What's more nauseous to me is not even hear the president and his lies and Marco Rubio and their imperialist talking points where they disguise sociopathy for foreign policy. And it's just the people that cheer them on, fam, that really just drive me crazy.
Yeah. Sorry about my sound, guys. Today I have to get my microphone back up to work. Listen, so I was right again, and I know we're gonna start with the Tulsi thing, but Jayme needs to hear this one.
Listen,
And
Jayme.
here's the thing: it's not just Jayme. Like a lot of the very cheerleader pro BRICS. Like I'm not anti BRICS. I just think it serves a different purpose than people have made it out to be. I'm definitely not anti-Russia. I just think that there's some clarity needed with how some channels, either by default because they work for or are paid for by Russia or China, literally actually do propaganda, and they don't look at things directly. And as somebody that's lived in Russia for a long time and has ties in Russia, I will tell you, they don't lie when they don't want to say something, they omit. So they are not omitting this time to this thing. And I want to go over the fact that, a lot of people have been saying Russia's providing intel to Iran just because Western media said it and it sounded good for Russia. For me, it was a way to just tie Russia to Iran, which is, of course, what they do in an effort to go after them. And I want to go over that because according to the Kremlin spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov, that is all fake news. Russia is not providing any intel or satellites to Iran. And I've said this before, and we said it again with Vanessa on our Substack and our YouTube show, Critical Perspectives. We literally said the Chinese are using the Beidou satellites, and they switched to those right before right after the 12-day war. And they have found those to be much more effective than the Russian ones. So I think a lot of people just don't bother looking at news anymore or bother doing the research. And if they see something that sounds good on X or that somebody they trust says, or if it's like, oh, yay, look what Russia's doing in China. They're getting together and they're going to help Iran out because, they're next. And you're right, they are next. But the thing is, it's not like this alliance is like the Avengers versus like whatever the evil villains are.
Thanos.
Yeah, that Thanos. It's not like that, guys. It's literally a lot more pragmatic and rooted in economic decision-making for Russia and China. Whereas Iran, as you can see, the martyrdom, the death, the assassination of Ali Larijani is not going to stop them. They already have replacements in line, right? So what I want to focus overall is like understanding the different dynamics that are at play here, because I still feel like people don't understand that.
Yeah. Well, fam, let's just talk briefly too, because it's kind of tying into what you're talking about, and I think it's very good to point out the clarities, and I love your opinions too as well. There are people out there who still say, well, Fee used to be, Putin's girlfriend and pro-Russia and blah, 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 blah. I still wouldn't say, when you look at things on a geopolitical level, right? I still think that, number one, it's our responsibility to hold our government accountable first. And I still do believe a lot of the reactions from China and Russia are simply that, a reaction from the empire's initial actions. And I think they're on a much harsh playing field. But that doesn't mean that everything that Russia does is good. Everything that China does is good. There's a lot of skepticism there. And I think, I've never had a Xi Jinping t-shirt. I've never been an ideologue. I've always pushed for a mixed economy, those sort of things. And I think it's important to point out the clarities right now. I mean, I do want to talk about too as well, really quickly, that the dangers, and I want to hear your opinion on this, when back in the days, there's this kind of consensus where certain people, where they claim to be leftist or whatever they are, they're anti-imperialist, anti-war, they'll still repeat absolutes. Like back in the days, it was, yes, Assad is a brutal dictator, but, and then still try to make a point that America shouldn't be involved. And that's very, very dangerous, because when you start conforming to, like, or I don't want to say conforming, but accepting the mainstream media's narrative that comes directly from the, the imperialist state, there's a problem there. Anna Kasparian, who a lot of people are on her nuts now, going, oh my God, she's so great, and stuff like that. Just recently, though, she was like, F Hamas, screw Hamas, but United States shouldn't be doing this. Why is it important to not conform or to compromise with the security state, even if you are still trying to make another point to say that America shouldn't be involved or America's the aggressors, especially when it comes to Assad as a brutal dictator, but Hamas sucks, but why is it important not to repeat those things, fam?
Well, number one, Anna Kasparian wouldn't be featured on mainstream media and wouldn't be promoted the way she is if she didn't say those points.
Yeah.
So the
and they're lies. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, those lies. But again, she has garnered a lot of popularity in the short term United States of America that literally forgets that she was pushing quite the opposite just a few years ago. And she has a majority of us blocked, and myself included, because we called her out on her bullshit. But push forward a few years later, people that have that audience, the TYT new generations come in that aren't, aware of everything that happened, and they get sucked into the likes of Anna Kasparian. There's a lot of other people like her. She's not the only one, and Cenk Uygur. And so they think, oh, these guys, look, they're saying the real things. They're saying the things that a lot of us have been saying for years, but that are now being promoted because now there's money to be made in the anti-Zionist movement, especially the one leaning towards the right, where now, everything is Israel, and Israel did this, and Jews are the problem, and Israel and Israel and Israel. There's no accountability for the United States. We're going to separate the United States from Israel because we're not that. No, that we are that. We are that. We wouldn't. In fact, Hassan Nasrallah talked about how the United States is effectively the orchestrator of all of this. So that in and of itself is why you have Anna and others' voices promoted, because they don't talk about things honestly. They're just grifting off the wave that they're riding. And it is important to not allow these both-siding, fence-sitting arguments that many people do to continue, or to at the very least point them out, because it manufactures consent for another type of intervention later on. Hezbollah I hate Hezbollah. They're terrible. They'll say, but the Lebanese people need peace. They'll say these things. Or they'll say the same thing about Hamas, as you just pointed out. And they'll say the same thing about, say, the Assad. The thing is, they won't go into the deeper nuances of things, because the moment you do that, then there's no justification. There's no ability to justify the United States' actions and our actions militarily and intelligence-wise in the future. And they can't do that, because when the time comes, they're going to shift back and justify the next intervention, whether the next president is Joe Biden or, it's not going to be Biden. Let's say it's Harris or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or Gavin Newsom. They're going to run over there. And then people are going to be like, oh my God, I thought you blah, 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 blah. I thought you were on our side. And then we start over again and the same thing repeats. And it's exhausting for some of us who have to watch it day in and day out. So it's not that, I just want to say it's not that we're haters because that's what we're going to get, that we're jealous or that we somehow, we don't think people can change. You don't think people can change is what I always get. People can change genuinely, I think, after a lot of self-awareness, after a lot of understanding, and admitting, hey, I was wrong. I'm sorry. I apologize to you. You were right. Now I see the truth. And it's a genuine progression of change. It is not an overnight change. It's not a change that comes by because you're plastered all over and you're getting a lot of attention for saying the most basic shit, which is also part of the Joe Kent thing that I didn't even put in the folder. But I do want to address because that guy is being pushed for president now. And people are such idiots latching on to the next hero that they're being thrown on just because the guy did the most basic shit. And people who are from the region, whether they're Lebanese or whether they're Iran, people who I talk to all the time who don't have this Western centric perspective where they're, oh, who's our next hero? Who's our next guy that we're going to latch on to? Those people see it right away. But it's the US Americans and the Westerners who always want to latch onto some sort of hero and give a mild clap for them doing the most basic shit. For them,
shit they should have been doing anyways. Yeah.
Which they should have done anyways. Okay, good job for doing it. But that doesn't mean I'm going to put you on a pedestal. And I don't put people on a pedestal anymore. If I ever did, that stopped a long time ago with Bernie Sanders. That was the last straw. Right. Yeah. And I think, I would mock the whole Putin thing. We did the Putin shirts and all of that because I was called a Russian bot way back in 2016, just for saying we shouldn't be interfering, that that Russia wasn't the boogeyman. And I still believe that. And I still believe that Russia was right to go into Ukraine because if they didn't do that, they would no longer be Russia at all. So I stand by all of that, but don't put people on a pedestal. Don't put me on a pedestal. Don't put any of us on a pedestal,
Yeah. Well, I give everybody permission to put me on a pedestal for being one of the nicest guys out there that could cook Italian food and has got mad game for a chubby guy. I'm the Chub Club's #1 woman getter in my group. So just want to put that. So you can put me on a pedestal if you're a chubby guy out there like me. But listen, I just want to reiterate, and when I was trying to speak before, it's because I just yes, you hit the point that when people I don't want to say their names, but when they say Assad is a brutal dictator, but when they say that Hamas is evil, but and the same thing with Charlie Kirk, right? Everybody's saying, oh, he was waking up, he was coming around, but a week before he got killed, he was still saying Islam and communism are the #1 problems. To me, this is what's going to be used to justify the next intervention. You said it yourself too as well right there. That's why it's so dangerous to push those things back. But I do disagree with one thing. I do believe, when it comes to Cenk, it comes to Anna, they got big platforms. If we had a chance to debate them, you, Anna, me, Cenk, I would encourage you to say, let's do this. You know what I'm saying? Because I did go back, I watched your Destiny debate. I went back and looked at my Destiny debate. Those things are powerful when you're getting people who are taking mainstream media talking points and you beat them back with them. And I think that's important. You know what I'm saying? So I understand where you say, all right, don't pay attention to them, whatnot. And me, obviously, kind of trying to connect with Cenk just recently was to get him to draw him out and say, come on, well, let's have a debate about this. Let's have a debate about COVID, me and you, Cenk. I don't think he'll ever do that. Maybe he might do Russia, Ukraine. But I would like to get the opportunity to push back against him when he uses those mainstream media talking points, especially since they have big platforms. Now, we understand they have big platforms because they're given those platforms because they do say those things. So that's why I do think it's important to take them head on. So if Sam Tripoli wants to, I don't know how you feel, Fee, if you would like the opportunity to take on Anna, I would. I'd say go get her. You know what I'm saying? Let's do this. But, there are people out there, and I know that that's the thing. They'll accept debates from right wing, over the top. I know Cenk would have a debate with Owen Schroyer or Alex Jones or all those names and stuff. But I think they'll avoid debates like us because getting attacked from the actual left, the non-synthetic left, That's difficult. And I'd like to see them take this on. You know what I'm saying? I mean, TYT versus us. Let's do this. Come on. But I mean, that's just my opinions. I don't know where you stand on that. But that's why you saw me yesterday trying to talk to Chang to see, okay, let's go. You know, that's where I'm at.
I just think it gives him more attention that they're grifting off. I mean, because he's not going to accept a debate from you, and she would never. She has me blocked. So, I mean, this is the reality. If there was ever an opportunity to expose this duplicity in them, then yeah, of course. But
Yeah.
I just don't think that. I think they try to like also debate in a way that's like, oh, who says the most edgy shit, and then I'm gonna say this edgy thing, and I'm gonna scream at the camera, and I'm gonna do this because they can. I guess an idiot Zionist or a right winger, but they can't, really actually debate people who know and understand nuance and substance. And I want to address this comment, fam, since we're gonna talk. Are you gonna show anything about Tulsi, or are we moving on to the?
We had Tulsi on. I think Jayme, you played it in the very beginning. I wanted to open the show with it, but Jayme played it in the beginning, and it was Tulsi's. How long is it? Can we play it again real quick? It's really short. Let's play it again real quick. But fam, this is when we were talking to Tulsi, giving her information, saying like helping her out with debates, all those things.
Before
yeah.
Jayme plays it, I want to address this comment that was made in the chat. Okay, I never put Tulsi Gabbard on a pedestal. What we did was give her the time of day. We gave her the opportunity, and we believed in what she said. I'm going to speak for myself now. I believed that she, at the very least, not only left the Democratic Party, which actually was not indicative of any flip-flopping. It was indicative that she left the Democratic Party because she was an independent. She decided to remove herself from a position of power, right? And then actually side with somebody like Sanders, who was supposed to be at that time, especially the first time, opposing the establishment. The things he said, generations hadn't heard that in forever. So everybody was like, wow, she stepped down from a power position and did this. That never happens. That hasn't even happened since all of that happened, guys. That hasn't even happened in the last 10 years. So you can't say that was nothing. She also had positions that we're going to hear right now that made her position as an anti-interventionist at the very least.
Yeah.
Far more than anything that we had seen in Congress, including even after with AOC. She had better positions on a lot of foreign policy issues than AOCIA. And so even against AOC, when she was getting attacked by them, we said, wow, she's getting attacked in spite of the fact that she looks on at the First Amendment, Second Amendment, Third, Fourth, Fifth. She talks about surveillance. She talks about censorship. She talks about foreign policy. She listened to our questions. She actually listened to independent media. And we had conversations with her. We would hold her to account on Bolivia, Venezuela. She would actually answer our questions on that. Yeah. Now, the fact that whether she was bullshitting, that's a whole other thing. That is a politician in its essence, being able to lie to people or to be able to tell them something that isn't real, or then shift your position to get to another status level of power, playing the long game or whatever she is doing as now you're going to see as DNI, right? Like her position shifted. And when her position shifted, we called her out. So if we were to put her on a pedestal, it would mean not calling her out. It would mean worshiping her. It would mean still saying, oh, but Tulsi, like some of her supporters still to this day do. So that's not the same thing.
Yeah. And once again, I will take more blame of that than Fiorella. I was definitely more into Tulsi than any other candidate. I thought she was the anti-regime change war candidate. I mean, most of the questions, right? And then again, too, like Fam said, she wasn't just giving access to me. Every single event that she had in 2020 when she was running for president, she'd have a press gaggle in the back, and anybody can join it at any time. We went to New Hampshire, same thing. So I really respected the fact that she would take on those questions. She definitely stood out in 2020, but you're right. But now that she is the way she is, I haven't been hero worshiping her for quite some time. And anybody who still is, I kind of go, enough is enough. Me and Kelly Lane were talking about this the other day. It's like, all right, there comes a time. And by the way, we weren't worshiping her for leaving the Democratic Party. When I was praising her, it was way before that. It was just she was saying on the campaign trail. You know what I'm saying? We were yelling that she should have left the Democratic Party way before that. But yeah, I mean, I can't get too deep in the weeds for this. We did like what she had to say. She's come off a lot of those positions. When she said the shit on Fox News about Hamas, not so much about Hamas, but about, Sunni Islam bullshit, I'm saying? That's the greatest threat to America. I immediately called her out. So, yeah, those days are long gone. Let's get into this here, fam. Let's play the tweet and let's talk about what she talked about before as opposed to now. Because when you see her on stage right now in 2020, nobody was saying this stuff.
The American people need to understand that this war with Iran would be far more devastating, far more costly than anything that we ever saw in Iraq. This is why it's so important that every one of us, every single American, stand up and say, no war with Iran.
A war with Iran would be far more costly and far more devastating than anything that we experienced in Iraq. A war with Iran would make the war in Iraq look like a cakewalk. The neocon war hawks that surround President Trump have made no secret about what their intentions are to further this regime change effort, both in Venezuela as well as in Iran.
President Trump campaigned against regime change wars when he ran for president, but now he bows to the wishes of the neocons who surround him, clamoring for regime change wars that he claimed to oppose, this time in Venezuela and in Iran.
This brings the United States closer than ever to war against Iran, which will be absolutely disastrous for our country, for Israel, for Iran, the Middle East, Europe, and the world.
I've introduced legislation to deal with some of these kinds of abuses called the No More Presidential Wars Act. And this legislation would make it an impeachable offense for any president to bypass Congress and to unilaterally go and start waging a war in another country.
The American people.
Bam. That Tulsi's long gone. Your volume. Sorry. Volume.
I unmuted it and then somebody muted it.
Not me, maybe Jayme,
Okay.
but you can blame
Was
Cheese.
she ever there to begin with? I don't know, is what I was saying. Like, was she playing the long game? It's I think a lot of people have a hard time because she's one of the most stoic people where she hides a lot of who she really is. And it's rare for me to not be able to fully, clearly read a person when I meet them or when I see them. But she was one of those people that was like, there's just something off, but she's saying all the right things. She's taking the action on all the right things, but I can't put my finger on it. And I long knew about the problems with her because I had a friend that worked on her campaign and had started telling me. But during that time, she was still doing all the right things, saying all the right things, and all of this stuff. So yeah, and during that time, it was actually the majority of people were blinded to Bernie being perfect, right? As well. And it was like this thing where, they both had things that the other lacked. So people always wanted them to come together. And then that whole thing also divided people as well. And the thing is that we can all learn from this is just don't trust politicians. But people kept trusting politicians after that. They trusted Donald Trump. They trusted the squad. They trusted all these people. And we didn't. After the squad and all that, the second time Bernie ran, all that stuff started coming out. We were just like, what? And you're not, and I didn't, and Pasta can't say this, but I didn't, push RFK Jr. I didn't push any of those people because I knew this is where we were going. So.
Yeah. By the way, I have a little clip of Tulsi Gabbard right here. This is from today. Fam, her face, she looks like she's getting weathered over here. I don't think she's happy doing what she's doing. She's a completely different person. But take a listen here. She's going to talk about Iran. And it's so different than what she said years and years ago. Here's Tulsi Gabbard this morning.
In the Middle East, conflict and instability will shape security, political, and economic dynamics in a variety of ways. The IC assesses that Operation Epic Fury is advancing fundamental change in the region that began with Hamas's attack on Israel on October 7th, 2023,
and continued with the 12-day war last year, resulting in weakening Iran and its proxies. The IC assesses the regime in Iran appears to be intact but largely degraded due to attacks on its leadership and military capabilities. Its conventional military power projection capabilities have largely been destroyed, leaving limited options. Iran's strategic position has been significantly degraded. The US-led maximum pressure campaign and snapback of European sanctions added additional pressure to an already bleak Iranian economy, resulting in mass protests earlier this year that Tehran suppressed by killing thousands of protesters. Even if the regime remains intact, the IC assesses that internal tensions are likely to increase as Iran's economy worsens. Even so, Iran and its proxies continue to attack US and allied interests in the Middle East. The IC assesses that if a hostile regime survives, it will likely seek to begin a years-long effort to rebuild its military, missiles, and UAV forces. Prior to Operation Epic Fury, the IC assesses Iran was trying to recover from the severe damage to its nuclear infrastructure sustained during the 12-day war and continued to refuse to comply with its nuclear obligations with the IAEA, refusing them access to key facilities. The IC assesses that China, Russia, and North Korea see the United States as a strategic competitor and potential adversary. Iran has long viewed the US as an adversary and is engaged in active conflict with the US as of today.
Why are they a freaking adversary, Tulsi? I mean, and also do repeating the lies, I think, from, what Donald Trump is doing. In other words, she's trying to sell this as this war being effective, that hitting the top leadership in Iran, which you're going to talk about coming up, is causing them damage, that we've taken away their main weapons and now they're just kind of holding on. But she still kind of admits the fact that, it's not going to be toppled. This is the last part I want to play, fam, and it's like 30 seconds of Senator Warren. Oh, sorry, this is the one I want to do. This one here. Senator Mark Warner going, hey, in your opening speech, you left out a few things. Maybe you left out a few things that we had told. Did you not? And then she questioned, did you not tell the president from your intel that you had that if he were to attack Iran, the Strait of Hormuz would be closed? You didn't mention that. You didn't mention the fact that they might pull together in a nationalistic way. He called her out for leaving certain stuff out. I just want to play this real quick, and then we'll get into the section, fam, because I think it all equates.
Even in your printed testimony today on page 6, and your last paragraph on page 6, as a result of Operation Midnight Hammer, Iran's nuclear enrichment program was obliterated. There's been no efforts to try to rebuild their enrichment capability. You omitted that paragraph from your oral opening. Was that because the president had said there was an imminent threat 2 weeks?
No, sir, I recognized that the time was running long and I skipped through some of the
So
portions
you chose
to
take
my oral delivered remarks.
You chose to omit the parts that contradict the president, even in your.
So she left certain stuff out, right? To make it, to be friendly to the Trump administration, to be friendly to Trump's actions and what he's doing. So it's a little bit, it's disheartening what she's doing at this point. Like I said, the only positive thing she said today is that China does want to have a peaceful reunification with Taiwan, but they will use force if necessary. So, Bam, please take it away. Let's jump into the section. That's all I got for this.
Yeah, it's clear she's reading, and before she would never read. She would just recite her thoughts and her ideas. And I'm not saying reading means you're automatically, a sellout, but it's clear that she's following instructions and doing what she needs to do to maintain her position of power. And it's a completely different style, completely different type of Tulsi Gabbard than people saw when she ran. So, it's very clear that that's where she's going. That's where she's headed. And yeah, I mean, that's an opportunist. That's a politician, and that's fine if that's what you want to do. But, she destroyed her credibility.
Yeah. Well, I think she's going to run with Joe Kent. It's going to be a Gabbard Kent presidency. Maybe the next election. Who knows? I don't know. It definitely seems like she's just trying to further herself along the way. And, she's doing her job, which is to provide cover for the imperialist nation. You know what I'm saying? And once again, she came off totally different. Let's get into this section, fam, because there's a lot of stuff going on in Iran. I got a call from my source this morning in the middle of the night. I didn't get a chance to answer because I was sound asleep. But they're pretty hyped up. I think they had their 63rd wave or campaign or missile launch.
Yeah.
But it also, I'm seeing like in Lebanon, Beirut, some buildings are being attacked. Residential buildings being attacked by by Israel again. But let's get into what's going on right now, the state of Iran.
So first, I want to go back to what breaking Fiorella right again, because we didn't really go over that. So if we can go back to that, Jayme, you can go back to this tweet that I just posted before the show. And okay, so the Kremlin has said that the Wall Street Journal report on Russia sharing drone technology with Iran is fake news. Okay, and we can pull up the Reuters article, and this was featured on Reuters. It's in the second comment. The link is in the second comment if you go there. But it says the Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said on Wednesday that a Wall Street Journal report that Russia is sharing satellite imagery and improved drone technology with Iran is fake news. Russia has been expanding. This is what the report said. Russia has been expanding its intelligence sharing and military cooperation with Iran, providing satellite imagery and improved drone technology. So the Wall Street Journal had reported Tuesday, citing people familiar with the matter, citing nobody else but themselves, essentially. And a lot of people took that and ran with it and said, oh, look, Russia's providing this with Iran. They're going to, enter the war. They're going to help in this very covert way. Russia doesn't do anything like that unless they announce it. And if they don't announce something, they're omitting something. But they don't have a spokesperson come out and lie. Like that, if it's coming from Dmitry Peskov, maybe you're not going to get the whole story. But if they're saying they're not sharing drone technology, it's because they're not sharing drone technology. 9 times out of 10, you don't catch them in a lie. What you can catch them on, though, is in omissions, like specific omissions. Like they don't like to say no. They don't like to like, if you ask somebody, a Russian, like, hey, can you help me with this? And they can't, they will say, well, I have to do this. And then I have to do this. Or they won't answer you. This is like a cultural thing as well. But if they have a legitimate reason to say the answer, and like if you're talking about a politician, they're going to say no. And they're going to tell you no. So I don't believe that Russia is sharing any drone technology and any of this stuff with Iran because they don't have a mutual defense pact. They have a strategic military cooperation pact, but there's no defense in that.
Yeah. Is there any truth, fam, though, to the Russians using Iranian drones for the Ukraine conflict? Because I heard that's possible.
Oh, yeah. No, from what I know, that was a thing that they were using the Iranian drones. And Vanessa actually talked about this in our last chat because she looked into it thoroughly. And they were actually using them, which is why there was kind of this like pushback from, Iranian analysts, journalists, a lot of people in the region, when it's become like, oh, look, Russia and China are like carrying Iran in this war. It comes off like that. Like, it's just very degrading. It robs Iran of the agency. The fact that it's Iranian lives and Lebanese lives, as you pointed out, that are being lost and nobody else is getting involved. So when you say these things, it just comes across like you're just dismissing all the shit that they're taking. And you're just saying, oh, China and Russia are superior and they're going to come in. Actually, a lot of people have just dismissed and undermined Iran and its capabilities.
I have a question. Is it okay to say that some of the decision making that the Trump administration had, or the ruling class, whoever's making the decisions here in the United States to go ahead and attack Iran, was also about deterring China's Belt and Road Initiative, the way that the Colonel Karen Kwiatkowski talked about and stuff? Like, could that have had a factor into the whole play that, yes, we're going to take out Iran, but at the same time, we're going to really put a damper on China's Belt and Road Initiative, which is going to help us in the global economy when it comes to trade?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can say that because the United States is looking at resource extraction. They're looking at like attaining the majority of resources that they can in an effort to compete with the biggest superpower, which at this point is China. But also, you can't leave out the fact that this is a major thing for the fundamentalist Zionists, whether Christian or Israeli, Greater Israel Project, and that Iran is the last thing, the last bastion that stands against them, and that Iran is also a representation of the central axis of resistance. The entirety of resistance looks to Iran. Iran has the majority of the military, the majority of the support, the ability, the power to actually be able to take the United States and Israel and Saudi Arabia and Qatar, all the vassal states, head on. They're doing what people thought that Russia and China would do, but they're not, because they're focused on economics and trying to work things out without any sort of military aggression. Whereas Iran has no problem having a military confrontation if it's what's required to defend their sovereignty, if it's what's required to defend their land in their beliefs in that. That's a different position. That's a different idea. It's a different thought process that they're operating on. And this is what people still don't understand. For Iran, this isn't about China. This is about Iran surviving and their existentialism. For Iran, this is about the fact that they need to defend their people, their sovereignty, their land and their existence, and do the right thing. Martyrdom is a dignified thing, as Satara, when she came here, she told us. For Russia and China, they're trying to advance their economic and political effectiveness and position in the world. So they're going to tread differently than Iran is. So yeah, you can say that for the United States, well, they want to acquire as many resources to compete with China, of course. But that's not the only reason they went after Iran. And they severely underestimated who Iran is and what they can do.
I put a question up on the screen, fam, because I think a lot of people are kind of questioning this and stuff. Is Iran the final and strongest opponent for the Greater Israeli Project? Because we have talking about if Iran falls. And really, to tell you the truth, I do, like, when do people point out, like, oh, I think it was Kim.com. Oh, America's really at war with China here. Why don't we just, no, that's not the truth. You're discrediting, once again, what Iran is saying. The resolve of the people, right? From my source, the way the people are not backing down, like they're, my source told me, it was like, I'm glad that Israel's out of the way. And now America's taking us on head on, because they always believed that they were the greater enemy. He believed that they were the greater enemy. And a lot of people have that difference, right? Some people say all roads lead to Israel. Some people like all roads lead to the American empire. I think all roads lead to the technocrats and the ruling class who want to control everything. And I think that's the final stage. And they'll use these nations at their leisure to wage war. But I think the fact that these people in Iran, I mean, not only the fact is it's so different when you talk about what's going on in Ukraine and Russia, and I hate to repeat myself, Ukraine was using complete Western weapons, NATO weapons, right? American weapons, whatnot. That's not the same here. Iran has their own manufacturing of their own weapons, missiles, drones, and it's the people of Iran themselves who've been taking to the street fighting this enemy here. So I think we can't sidestep them. So that question I have right there, this seems like at the what's his name, the Wesley Clark list. This is the last name on that list, right? This is it right here. This is the one they got to go after. So that my question is Iran the final and strongest opponent for the Greater Israeli Project?
Yeah, because both China and Russia have a relationship with Israel. That's not a problem for the United States. And they're not going to stop the relationship. This is why Russia will not put Israel in a dangerous position. Pragmatically, because they have Russian Israelis that live there. Also, they have a relationship that they can finagle things like, for example, the Syrian base in I forget, was it Homs or I forget which particular city, but that they were given, that Israel went and lobbied to the United States Congress for Russia to keep its base, despite the fact that Syria had disintegrated. This is why you saw the quick pivot to where Russia welcomed
Giuliani, yeah.
What's his name?
Giuliani. Yeah.
Giuliani
That
into
picture broke my heart, fam. Putin and
into
Giuliani. Oh,
with like fanfare and everything. This is what they always do. They, but this is a diplomatic position. This is the position they hold. They've always been close to the Gulf. They always have at the what is it? The St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. Many of the major speakers were from Saudi Arabia, were from Qatar, from the UAE. They've always had this relationship. I think people don't understand Russia and China. They think of them as socialist or like anti-imperialist beacons, but that's not what I'm seeing. Obviously, China doesn't come in, like we say all the time, the same way that a bully comes in like Trump. They offer something and want something in return. And it's a little bit more of a reciprocal type of relationship than the United States. But that doesn't mean that they're not operating on a capital global basis. They're all part of Agenda 2030. A lot of people argue and say Iran is, but they can't give me the evidence to show that Iran actually is. Iran is actually outside of this monetary system. Iran actually didn't want to use vaccines from the West either. Iran has actually kind of, in a way, been isolated forcefully, but then has created their own mechanisms like military weapons, like other technology out of need. The same way we've seen Cuba, for example, do in the medical field, the same way we've seen Nicaragua do when it comes to food subsistence. It's the same way. They were forced by the sanctions, by the propaganda to create their own mechanisms to survive. And so China, though, the economy is intrinsically connected with the United States. And it always has been. So for a long time, at the very least, in the last, let's say 30 years, right? So I think people just don't understand who they really are. It's more of like a lack of understanding of China, actually, than it is even a lack of understanding of Iran and why they're doing things.
So the only safe places to move right now, if we want to get outside the WEF, is Iran or Nicaragua at this point.
Well, it's obviously not safe in Iran because they could nuke Iran.
Safe from the WEF, but not safe from the empire.
Is any place safe eventually? Will any place be safe? That's the scary part. What Iran is doing is fighting evil. Like they're literally fighting on behalf of all of us. I don't think people realize yet. Like they're fighting everything that we fear. The Epstein pedophiles, the elite transnational class, the surveillance class, the AI like intelligence, all of that. They're fighting that right now. And nobody else is, except, the resistance with them, but nobody else is. No other. China could, Russia could, but that's not their end goal, is to end that. You see, their end goal is to actually adopt that in their own way for their own benefit.
Gotcha. Please continue.
Okay. So, so let's just go. I know that's a little bit, people will say it's doomer. It's not doomer. I'm actually, like I say, I'm actually an optimist. But I'm a realistic one. So Israel killed Larijani, which was, I think, devastating for a lot of people, in the region, especially people who saw who he was, right? He was extremely well educated, extremely intelligent. There's a few, I forget which tweets, but there's a list of like his entire background. A lot of these Iranian leaders, put us Americans to shame. Our politicians are absolute idiots in front of them. I mean, and it's not just from Iran. You can say the same thing about China. You can say the same thing about Russia. You can say the same thing about pretty much any of these countries and how their politicians speak and address the public versus Donald Trump or, Joe Biden, Stephen Witkoff, Jared Kushner. I mean, it's really embarrassing. We should all be embarrassed as Americans, but he was killed with his son and with his some of the members that worked with him. And he was the secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council. So, he was very, very, very intelligent. And he was killed on Monday. Okay. And so I want to go over, the specifics of what happened after that, because a lot of people thought, oh my God, this is it. They're decapitating all of Iran. Now they've killed Larijani. They had killed Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. And now supposedly, his son is injured. This is, what's all plastered on mainstream media. But the Iranian foreign minister, Araghchi, says these assassinations will not topple Iran's political structure.
And the reason being is because Iran already has replacements set up for these important positions, more than 1, 2, or 3. So it's not. And also because Iran, again, understands martyrdom and it's a high honor. So it doesn't like distract them from their mission. So the Al Jazeera says Israel's killing of Ali Larijani, the powerful secretary of Iran's Supreme National Council, will not deal a fatal blow to Iran's
Jayme, we
leadership.
got something for this?
It should be in the
Where are we
right,
at?
the tweet. It should be under the tweet. In the document. In the document. It should be in the document. It's the
Will you
second.
following the doc, Jayme?
If you want, I can try to pull it up.
Hold on. Jamie's got it. There we go.
Okay.
There we go. Thank you.
Okay, so that's what we went over. And then the second link in the document is the Al Jazeera thing. So this is what Aragachi said. He said, I do not know why the Americans and the Israelis still have not understood this point. This is how I feel right now. I don't understand why people still don't understand this. The Islamic Republic of Iran has a strong political structure with established political, economic, and social institutions. The presence or absence of a single individual does not affect this structure. Of course, individuals are influential and each person plays a role. Okay. And each person plays a role, some better, some worse, some less. But what matters is that political system in Iran is a very solid structure. So again, this is what I want everybody watching this to understand. It does not matter. It matters. Like, obviously, people care, people support them. But that's not going to be a reason for them to stop. In fact, it's going to bring them together. It's going to bring them out in the streets like it has done for the last few weeks. It's going to bring them out in the streets to go and do something and say something, right? So that's that, fam. Anything to say about that? Because I think I've tried to hammer this point for people to understand. Like,
yeah, I think that was some of the question, some of the pushback against Tulsi today when she did try to say that they were kind of weakened because of the killing of their leaders and whatnot, and their disassembling or bombing of some of their major weaponry. And from everything I've been heard from my source over there is that when they do these things, people take to the streets. Mohammed Morandi said on this show they have a functioning government. It will be okay. It's not going to collapse. And if one gets killed and martyred, the next one will step up to place. But people should understand that this is not going to work anymore. They keep on putting up on Fox News, eliminated. And they have they had like 2 pictures where 2 guys, like that's their next target. That's who they're going after. And then Tulsi followed up that lie today that the fact that this weakens Iran. It does not. It does not. It, like you said, it only pulls them together, and people have to understand that it's not going to work. And this Strait of Hormuz is going to remain closed until something. I don't know. I don't know what could happen to maybe open it up, but they're not going to close it. They're not going to allow it to be opened. They're controlling it, and that's something that we have to deal with right now. They have the upper hand right now, Iran. You there, fam? Can you? Oh, sorry.
I'm here. There was just a I don't know why there's been like 25 million helicopters today, so I had to mute it. No, I agree with you. And, I think people might be starting to get it after this, because right after they killed him, people went out in the streets like usual. And the other thing about Larijani's assassination was that coincidentally, one day before he was killed, and he had been dropping little nuggets about the Epstein network, right? One day before he was killed on March 15th, because he was killed Monday, and that was the 16th, okay? So he said, I heard that the remaining members of Epstein's network have devised a conspiracy to create an incident similar to 9/11 and blame Iran for it. Iran fundamentally opposes such terrorist schemes and has no war with the American people. So he's been talking about that. And he even posted it on like a note thing and reposted it, the tweet underneath him. People still in the United States to this day, very prominent people, buy the 9/11 bullshit story. So the fact that he even said this, for Americans, I think was whoa. But for people in Iran, in the region, they know, like, this is common knowledge. This isn't like a conspiracy. This is like common knowledge. Like this is like not even that's not a blip. Everybody knows that 9/11 was done by Israel. Like everybody does. Like it's like, I think we need to take a trip together to Iran, Pasta, because I think you would love it. You would love the food. You would love the tea. You would love all things there. And the thing is, like, they are so knowledgeable. And I can't even tell you how knowledgeable they are. Like the majority of people you meet in the United States, I'm not trying to be rude, but in the US, when you meet the majority of people, they know nothing about politics. They know nothing about the news. It's made that way, right? We're victims of in a way, of the propagandized brainwashing. But if you go to Iran, it's like the opposite. You can talk to people about the most vital issues of the day. Like, that knowledge is usually in the United States very relegated to a specific class of intellectuals. And a lot of these intellectuals are so arrogant that they refuse to even talk to anybody or go outside their own little, whatever brain corner. And so, but if you go to Iran, people are so welcoming and they're so kind and they're so nice and like they know a lot about a lot of things, but there's not that arrogance of like, we know a lot about the stuff. It's just very much like a common thing. And, as a society in the US, we should strive to be like that. We should strive to educate people. We should strive to be welcome, like people learning and like getting educated and that sort of thing. But it's almost like, looked down upon. So the reason I'm saying this is because it is really kind of telling that he was obviously he was a powerful person in the military intelligence aspect. Duh. Of course they wanted to kill him. But also the things he was saying, really, I think that pissed them off a lot. So that's all I have to say on that.
All right. Let's get to the next tweet. Is it Iran retaliates, or are we already there? Where's Bibi? Or in reality? Fam, you're muted, right?
Let's play the video. Just play this video. This is kind of what we were talking about earlier. So we can just play the video, Jayme.
Of his country's top security official, Ali Larijani, will not set back the Iranian government.
I do not know why the Americans and the Israelis still have not understood this point. The Islamic Republic of Iran has a strong political structure with established political, economic, and social institutions. The presence or absence of a single individual does not affect this structure. Of course, individuals are influential and each person plays their role, some better, some worse, some less. What matters is that the political system in Iran is a very solid structure.
Of his country's top security official, Ali Larijani.
So he just basically said what we talked about.
Saying,
It's kind of, the next one is just what happened yesterday. That was the 61st wave of strikes, Pasta.
Yeah.
As you were saying.
100 targets hit Tel Aviv, fam.
Yeah, so that was there was an estimate of 230 casualties, but we're not going to get confirmation from Israel on this stuff. So, but you can just show the video as we talk. You can lower the Tel Aviv has been targeted like never before, but so has, as we said earlier on the show, Lebanon. There's been a lot of bombing, just a lot of destruction there because they know Hezbollah is also being attacked by its own government. So they're kind of trying to get to Iran in this way because Hezbollah also provides a lot of defense. But like I said, Yemen is ready to fully enter, and so is our forces in Iraq. And also there are surviving forces in Syria from the Syrian Arab Army that also want to help out. So it's not, when we say it's Iran, yes, Iran is the center, but there's all of these resistance factions too that are very much doing their work.
Any way any of these resistant forces can make their way into Gaza, or is Gaza just a done deal?
I don't think anybody thinks of Gaza as a done deal. I mean, I think every single time you see any sort of event, they always talk about Gaza and Palestine. This is, in a way, for Gaza and Palestine. Iran has said it many times. Like, it's not just, this isn't just about Iran. Like, it's the entirety of the resistance, but it's not as simple as just entering Gaza. Israel has that very secure, very locked down. But this is a step if Iran is able to take on the United States and Israel in the Gulf simultaneously. There is a chance. There is a
Do you
chance.
think that is there any criticism that should be lobbied at Iran for waiting so long to be attacked before they defended themselves rather than get involved with Gaza a little bit earlier? Like, a lot of people are like, who's coming to Gaza's aid? And at one point I was hoping that it was Iran, but they seem to be sitting on the sidelines.
I mean, I think two things about this. Like, it's kind of annoying to hear people from countries who didn't do anything or who are the perpetrators chastise Iran about not going in sooner. On one end. On the other end, it's like, yeah, Iran should have not been so diplomatic, right? Like, they should have been a little more aggressive, but nobody else was doing it. It's like, it's kind of like, I agree they should have been more aggressive, but I also think it's unfair to try to justify, for example, Russia and China's veto and then go after them for not going in sooner.
Yeah, it makes sense. Makes sense. Next, Jayme.
So, guys, I don't know if you've looked into this stuff, but nobody really knows where Bibi Netanyahu is.
Where's Bibi?
And have you seen the videos, Pasta? Because we can play some of these videos.
Yeah, let's play some of them, though. I mean, because it's interesting. I guess, I think Matt did a really good job of this yesterday, opening up his show, talking about this stuff. Yeah. We were both on Nick at Night, Nick Cruz's show, kind of talking about what it means with Bibi Netanyahu. I think there's, at the end of the day, I've said this before, that if you remove him, the head of the snake is going to grow back. This is not about fighting Bibi Netanyahu. This is about fighting an ideology. And somebody will step in. We've seen it before. We've seen other people step in before and even have a harsher stance against the Palestinians and Iran and whatnot. However, if in fact he is dead, I think that means a lot and says a lot about what Iran is capable of doing, and that nobody's safe. And that's important right now. So please continue.
All right. So let's just watch this video and let's take everything out, so we can actually watch the supposed AI, because this is the claim that he put this video out, and that this video is actually AI. And a lot of the videos subsequently that this video isn't real as well. So there's a lot of videos of Bibi. I don't know. Did we play the first one? I think this is the second one, but it doesn't matter. We can play them all. So yeah, let's go ahead and play this one.
I'm here with Israel's defense minister, our chief of staff, the head of the Mossad, the chief of Air Force.
Started from the beginning, Jayme.
Senior commanders. I'm here with Israel's defense minister, our chief of staff, the head of the Mossad, the chief of Air Force, our senior commanders. In the past 24 hours, we knocked out 2 of the terrorist chieftains, the top terrorist chieftains of this tyranny. Our aircraft are hitting the terror operatives on the ground, in the crossroads, in the city squares. This is meant to enable the brave people of Iran to celebrate the Festival of Fire. So celebrate and Happy Nowruz. We're watching from above. I'm here with Israel's defense.
See that. They said one dude's glasses disappear. Whose? I didn't see that. But anyways,
I think you have to stop it and watch it more thoroughly. But those were some of the claims that, like, this was because if you look up the picture, there's another one from last year in 2025 that looks literally exactly the same. So a lot of people are saying this is a deep fake. Okay. Now there's another one, right? There's another one that these get worse, right? Gemini did state, that Gemini did state that was a deep fake. So this is another one where he's making fun of the people who say that he's AI.
אני מת על קפה, אתה יודע מה? אני מת על העם שלי. איך הם מתנהגים, פנטסטי. אתה רוצה לספור את מספר אצבעות? אתה יכול להראות לנו?
Saying he has 6 fingers.
היית?
This is
לחיים.
5 years.
אני חושב שהמסר לאנשים שיוצאים ומתאווררים,
לצאת להתאוורר, אבל ליד מרחב מוגן. והעמידה שלכם היא מדהימה, נותנת כוח לי, לממשלה, לצה"ל, למוסד. אנחנו עושים דברים שאני לא יכול לשתף ברגע זה, אבל עושים דברים מכים באיראן חזק מאוד, גם ביום הזה, גם בלבנון, ממשיכים. אתם אומרים לי להמשיך, אני אומר לכולכם, גם אתם תמשיכו. תמשיכו להישמע להוראות פיקוד העורף, כל הזמן, להישמע להוראות פיקוד העורף, וגם לראשי הערים, להיות תמיד ליד מרחב מוגן. ואנחנו נקל ככל שהדבר ניתן. תודה לך על הקפה, הוא מצוין. אני לא יודע לדבר הקלוריה הזה, נראה לי מסוכן.
People are saying that there's editing, like jumping
major cuts and yeah,
but that could happen in any video. You know, I'm kind of playing devil's advocate here because that could happen in any video. It could have like you can have editing cuts in a regular video that's not AI. That doesn't mean that the video is AI.
Yeah.
There's one more video, I think. Jayme, if you want to pull that one up.
All right, I'll go ahead and put it up. Which one is it, fam? Third one. That's the coffee one. Grok won't answer. Is it the one that says Grok won't answer or no? Fam, you're muted.
No, it's under Where's Bibi. Like it's the very first one. I don't know why it got skipped. It's the very first video. Yeah, that one.
Prime Minister, I wanted you to know the president asked me to come and make sure you were okay.
Yes, Mike. Yes, I'm alive.
Huckabee.
And I'm happy to see that. But he wanted to make sure because, you know, you guys get along too well.
I know, and we shake hands with 5 fingers in each hand. You know, but I have to tell you, I'm alive, but I have this card.
Oh.
And I don't read it. So it's a punch card.
Mm-hmm.
Today, I erased 2 names on the punch cards. And you see how many more to go on this batch.
You know what the good news is? My name is not on the punch card.
Your name is on the list of the good guys.
Thank you.
And what the president and U.S. forces are doing is incredible. We're very proud to stand on shoulders. But these lunatics would like to develop nuclear weapons and the means to deliver them to every American city after wiping out Israel. They ain't going to do that. We're wiping them out.
I love it. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. Good to see you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks. Take care.
Thank you.
The most disturbing part isn't if this is AI or not, guys, which I don't think it is, to be honest. The most disturbing part of this is what they're saying.
Exactly.
And how it's being fed to people in a fun, joking manner. Look, there's 2 names on this list. I already knocked them out. There's more coming here. You're the good guys. We're going to wipe them out. They're not going to wipe us out. Saying lies that Iran wants to attack American cities when literally Larijani just told you, like, there's zero interest. I mean, all Iranians can tell you there's zero interest in that from Iran. They have never attacked civilians.
There's no sleeper cells here, fam.
I mean, this is all bullshit. And like the American public should know based on Iraq at the very least. And before that, Vietnam, and before, you know, on and on and on. And so like, that's scary that they are able to sell this message and normalize it within generations of Americans that are watching this. Like, don't let them normalize this. It's not normal to go and kill leaders and on the behalf of another country or in congruence with another country. And nobody wants this war, yet they decide that you need to support this war. And it's just, it's evil. It's vile. When you see this, you can feel yourself like, what is going on? How is this even allowed? How are they even allowed to put this on social media? Yeah. And this is Mike Huckabee, for crying out loud. Like, how is this normal? Don't let them normalize this. Don't let them normalize this shit. This is absolutely, people should watch this and be disgusted with where
that's the Christian, fam. That's the number one Christian, God says. You know what I'm saying? It's, yeah.
So I guess my question is, it's weird. Grok isn't really answering like, when people ask him about this stuff, he's not really answering right away. He answered somebody once, and he's not answering. Like, this person talks about Gemini AI confidently states that this footage was captured April 14th, 2024. It states that the people in these offices will no longer be present at this meeting today. Can you please fact check this footage? Confirm. Grok, please answer the question above. It's time sensitive. No answer. Like, Grok has, and it's there's so many examples, but Grok doesn't answer like right away. Like, he answered somebody once, but then he never answered again. Grok, tell those that doubt this is an AI but real. He is alive and well. Grok, still waiting for your response. There's a lot of this that I was looking at, So it creates this whole idea, like, is it real? Is it AI? Is he alive? Iran themselves have said that they're not sure if he is alive or not. So, I would go by what Iran knows, because I have a feeling they know more than any of us do, right?
Yeah. Yep. What's next?
That's it
Jayme?
for that section.
That's it for that section. All right. Guys, we want to remind everybody that we do have a Give, Send, Go, and it's really important that you help us out. This is why you get some of the great, like, as I'm sitting here doing the show with you, it's like I'm so honored and so happy that we're doing this type of work over here, because it's nothing you see out there right now, and I don't want to be one of those guys who pats ourselves on the back and keeps on saying what's what, but we do have a unique perspective. I think our at the very least, you can say that the TruthWire, aka the Convo Couch, whatever you want to call us, their perspective is their perspective, right? It's our perspective, and we don't, waver on our principles just to get clicks or to appease anybody. We don't cheerlead for the right or the left, so it doesn't make a difference. We're going to bring to you what we believe is the truth. And if you like that and you want to continue to help that, please go to this Give, Send, Go. You can see Jamie's hitting that share button. It's blinking up and down. It's blinking up and down. 42 gives, 25 shares. If you do care and you can't give money, you'll at least give a share. So do us a favor and share it on out. It is givesendgo.com/election integrity matters. It's important that, we are looking around mid-April right now to do our first trip. I'm going to go into Peru, and we're going to cover this election. But it's more than covering this election, and you'll see that today, because what America is doing right now in Cuba, what it did in Venezuela, it's only going to get worse. And another thing we predicted, fam, we said that we're going to see some of the concentration move away from the Middle East, move away from, move away from Western Asia, move away from that region, and eventually come home to the Americas. And we're going to see strong arm tactics used in the Americas. We saw the bombing, the extrajudicial murders of fishermen in the Caribbean seas against Venezuela, just blowing up boats left and right. It was disgusting. We see the removal and the kidnapping of Nicolas Maduro. We see the now blockade, fam, of Cuba, which has been going on for a while, right? We've always had issues, the United States foreign policy apparatus, the ruling class has always had issues with Cuba, but they've intensified their attacks and the blockades for quite some time. Now this blockade is just a complete stranglehold. And when people say, oh, they're not getting fuel in there, they think, fam, that it's just their cars and their buses they won't be able to get around, and that's going to hurt their economy. But it's like literally taking away energy from homes, from hospitals. People can't get surgeries, can't get the healthcare they want, not. And this is sociopathy disguised as foreign policy. So let's dive into this. But guys, if you want to help us out, please go ahead and do that. We'll read your comment. What was the last comment over there, fam? I think it was from Kamshwari Kate. Oh, that's awesome. $25 from Kamshwari Kate. If it's still March, it must be Fiorella's birthday. Fam, it's still your birthday. That was 13 minutes ago. Can you refresh that, please, Jayme? Now try. Jeez. Yep, 16 minutes ago. Okay, cool. Guys, if you want to jump on into the fun, and there's Daniela Motos Cutter. Get a like on these things over here. We need to get likes on these. But Kamshwari Kate the other day, go ahead down a little bit. She gave $150, fam. That is so awesome. She's like giving up your birthday. It's March. It's March. Give to Fiorella. It's her birthday. Give.
Awesome.
I think it's awesome. And we are at 2177. So let's keep climbing, guys. Do us a favor. Go in there, hit a like, hit a share. Fam, do you want to say anything initially about Cuba before we get started with this section? Our good friend Danny Shaw has done some great work. He's going to be on the Homeless Left tomorrow talking about it. The Gray Zone featured his work on the internets, whatnot. So I think that was cool.
Many people who didn't like that.
What's that?
A lot of people didn't like that. Max shared his.
Fam, don't stir up shit. Don't stir shit up. Don't be a shit stirrer.
Stop. The fact that they're focusing on him as a person and not the fact that he's literally on the ground in Cuba, actually being a journalist. He's not just doing the symbolic stuff. He's out there, documenting and covering anything that should be talked about. But other people just sit and tweet all day and use their fake followers to do fake revolutionary shit that isn't real.
When I was saying don't stir up shit, fam, I was actually saying stir up shit, go for it and stuff. But it is kind of sad that the fact that they're going to put their little petty differences above and before the Cuban people who are starving over here. I don't give a shit what you fucking think about Danny Shaw. He was on the ground showing you what's going on firsthand. And that's what we should be paying attention right now. You're talking about grandmas, mothers, children. They can't get food. They can't get medical attention. That's what should be fucking important. So for some of you out there complaining about this and who Danny Shaw is, you're a 7-year-old and you need to grow the fuck up. You know who we're talking about. Let's jump into this, guys. And thank you so much for sharing our Give, Send, Go. And please get into it more. Fam, a couple days ago, we had Diaz-Canel. Jayme, do you want me to go ahead and control this, or is your computer locking up too much? Are you going to be get on point, or okay, good. Let's go in here. This is Cuba's president says due to Trump's blockade, thousands are waiting for surgeries. Tens of thousands are waiting for surgeries that cannot be performed because there is no electricity. If you can scroll down, among them are a significant number of children. Let's go ahead and play this video. Lower it down. And I will read as it's going along. This is right now in the country, there are tens of thousands of people waiting for a surgical operation. They cannot be performed due to the lack of electricity. I believe that in the recent days, the Minister of Public Health gave very relevant data. But among those tens of thousands, there is an important number of children who are waiting for these surgeries, a surgical intervention due to the effects of our health system from this energy blockade. So he went on there and he talked, and fam, I thought it was important to show Diaz-Canel because, yes, he is part of the same Communist Party that Fidel Castro was a part of. He comes from the same ilk and ideology of Che Guevara. I'm not going to deny that, but and I want to look at not the right wingers for a second, because we know the right wingers with their lies and how they'll kind of go over there and they'll, he's going to free them. He's going to liberate them. And we saw the Trump administration and Trump himself claiming that they were going to go after news channels and censor them and take away their licenses if they don't broadcast friendly war propaganda on TV. In other words, he was also trying to say that the people in the streets in Iran, that was AI, the nationalists, the people coming out supporting the government. Same thing that's going on over here, right? Like we have the right wing saying, oh my God, he's liberating them. A lot of people in the streets of Cuba, want freedom and whatnot. And we have pointed out before, and Danny has pointed out before too as well, my own personal opinions. When I went to Cuba for the first time, when we started talking, I went with Wyatt Reed the first time. Second time I went with Fam. But when we talk to a lot of younger people out there, they're not as concerned or as championing the revolution 60 years ago as the older crowd. You get an older person out there, and Danny said this, Viva la Castro, and they're out there, the revolution and stuff. That seems to be a little bit of a problem right now, right, with the younger generation, because they have phones, they have Instagram, they have Twitter, they have all these things until the power's out and they can't get it. And they see some of their family members, some of the gusanos, I hate to use that term, but I'm going to use it, in Miami, living it up, eating, going out to restaurants, all that stuff. And they say, why can't we have that too? Right? I think they're a little bit removed from what had happened, and they don't understand the fact that they had a revolution is because they had this capitalist class in there that controlled everything and made sure that they were poor and suffering. Same thing happened in Venezuela. So yes, there is some issues over there, but for the most part, I would say that the majority of the people in Cuba still want their national sovereignty, and they would just like the blockade to be lifted so they can get food and supplies in there and stuff. And it's important to show Diaz-Canel because Diaz-Canel is an educated college man. He's not like Fidel Castro, who was a military person. Now, Diaz-Canel did not put those missiles on the island, okay? And I hate to say that they were justified in doing so, but if people are going to freak out and say the Cuban Missile Crisis, we can never allow that again, this guy did not do that. Why shouldn't he be open for negotiations, fam? If America was serious about forging a path, honestly, with Cuba, why wouldn't they open up negotiations to him? And now they said, oh, now they forced him to the table by doing what they're doing. And that's a positive, not a negative. Your overall thoughts of what you're seeing initially right here and what's going on, the stranglehold on Cuba, where a lot of poor young people are going to die.
Well, first of all, I wouldn't even try to criticize Cuba for putting the missiles on the island, especially since we're seeing what happens when you don't have weapons and you don't have nukes and you don't have the ability to defend yourself. I would say, you know, they should have done it more. All of these countries should have done it more, because the United States only respect countries that can defend themselves, clearly. And they weren't ever going to stop going after countries if they somehow decided not to be nuclearized. So no, I don't agree with that. I don't think Diaz-Canel or I don't think Castro should have been chastised ever for doing what he did to save his people. I also don't think that showing, you know, weakness to the United States is the way to go either. But the reality is Cuba doesn't have the capacity, just like Venezuela didn't, to go on a military head-to-head fight with the United States like Iran is doing. And they don't have that capacity because they didn't have the weapons to begin with. And they should have. But now we're at a point where they don't have that. So what threat do they actually present? They don't present a threat for the United States. They present a threat of ideology, of a society that looks at collectivism, that looks at providing social welfare for the people. And, you know, that's the ideology that people like Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz and others who hate communism, who think communism, who use communism to try to justify intervention, use. But obviously, we know that the United States wants Cuba for business purposes, to build real estate, to control. They want Cuba to become Puerto Rico, and they want Puerto Rico to become Hawaii. That is literally the neo-colonial mentality that
Stepping stone too, right?
So it's, if you look at that, right, and it doesn't take a Bad Bunny song to educate you, but Hawaii is basically, you know, it was attained in a colonial way, the same way that they want Puerto Rico, and the same way they want Cuba. And so all of Latin America is pretty much now in danger of all of this happening. And so this is why it's so important. But I think I, unlike you, don't see a way where Cuba or Venezuela or any Latin American country can coexist and benefit with the United States. They will always be a vassal state. They will always be just colonists of these countries. It's neo-feudalism is what we're entering. So yeah, Cuba, you know, might work out a deal because they have nothing left to do, like nothing that they can physically do besides, you know, fight, have the older people fight. And a lot of the younger generation, as you said, doesn't believe in the revolution because they don't have the money. They don't have the lifestyle that they see themselves existing in the United States, just a few miles away in Miami, right?
Yeah.
Like they look at that and they're like, why can't we have that? The same way as some Russians look at that, at the salaries in the United States, when, you know, doctors get paid, you know, $1,500 a month in Russia, you can be a millionaire and be a doctor in the United States, and the same pretty much in any other country. And so they look at that and they're like, why can't we have that? It's understandable. But at the end of the day, that's the whole purpose of sanctions. It's the whole purpose of everything the United States has done. I don't see how this is going to benefit Cuba in the long run. I think their lives might benefit in the short run, meaning we're going to see food get there. We're going to see, you know, tangibles get there, operations go back up. But the cost of that in the long run, I think, will be Cuba's sovereignty.
Yeah. Do you think there's any and by the way, you don't need a Bad Bunny song to educate yourself, but it's a lot funner if you do, fam, right? You get to Come on, man. You know me. Fam will tell you, Fam's mom will tell you that I am the best white boy dancer she's ever seen. And that's hands down. So I don't want to hear about that. That's proven. And I also want to point out the fact that, Fam not criticizing Cuba for putting those missiles on island, Castro doing that years ago. Let's also not forget that that was a reaction to the United States putting missiles in Turkey. So has a lot to do with it. Once again, it's the reaction to the initial action. But Fam, does the Cuban government deserve any criticism whatsoever for not succeeding? Or I don't want to say not succeeding, but do they deserve any criticism for being in the position they're in despite the blockade and sanctions from the real world? I mean, are there moves they could have pulled that might have left them in a better position? A lot of people are saying their transition now to solar panels from China, where they've gone from 5% solar panels to 20%. That should have been done a long time ago, that they could have found a way, that there is some criticism to the Cuban government for being too strong-holded. In other words, just now, I think about a couple of years ago when we were going to Cuba, the foreign ministry in Cuba had announced that they were going to remove themselves from, at the time, they were currently involved in 135 to 143 sectors of the economy, that they were going to scale that down because it was too much management and probably go to controlling 40 sectors of the economy. In other words, them trying to hold on to the casinos and the hospitalities run by the government was too much of an outreach for them and kind of spread them thin. Had they had opened up to have other investing coming in, non-Western, China or, Russia, or a little bit more investing outside the West, that might have been able for them to concentrate on other things where they can acclimate more to the suffocation that the United States was putting on them. Do you see any criticism that's deserved from the Cuban government? I mean, I know it's hard for us to sit here as white people saying, you should have done this, you should have done that. But I mean, as analysts, I think it's only important that we do kind of mention, that. I mean, Danny Shaw in his work has mentioned that there are a lot of younger people out there that are upset. Do they have a legitimate gripe for being upset at the government?
Well, they're upset at the government because that was the entire intent. I mean, I've seen it so many times in Latin America. People of within living in these countries blame their government, and they don't pay attention to the mechanisms that are causing their government to act this way. It's the same thing here, and Peru. I mean, it's the same thing everywhere. I think every government is worthy of criticism, right? There are things that they could have done or to work within the global capitalist system that exists. But that's the thing, that they would have to have opened up to capitalism, and they would have had to maybe given more of their sovereignty. There's very little room in being an island that doesn't have oil, that doesn't have anything but tourism to survive on. I mean, they're not Venezuela, they don't have the oil, they're not Iran, they don't have they never had the resources. They were always like a tourist hub, even when they were controlled by the Batista regime.
What about biodiesel? I mean, seriously, Brazil has made a move to switch to biodiesel. Why didn't they do that a long time ago? Grow a lot of corn and at least try to and get more solar panels and stuff.
Can you grow a lot of corn in Florida? In Miami?
I don't know.
Exactly.
The Caribbean grows corn, don't they?
What Caribbean?
In parts of the Caribbean, there's a lot of maize used in. I thought maybe I'm wrong.
Central America.
I know they grow sugar, right? And I thought if you go,
that's Central America and Peru. You can't grow anything. Like try growing farmland on a lot of the Florida, in South Florida, in like Miami. You're not going to grow all that stuff. I mean, they're very limited in what they could do, which is why I think that their biggest mistake was not attaining nuclear weapons. And Russia, with the Soviet Union during that time, should have helped them during that time. And so should have China. They should have all helped Cuba, knowing that in the future, this was a possibility because they're so close to the United States. The fact that Cuba has survived this long without being captured by the United States, to me, is actually amazing, because they don't have the economic capacity. They don't have the military capacity. They don't have like any of that ability to actually participate in, like, you could say that they could have done a few things to extend their survival to
people say, fam, that they depended on Venezuela too much, right?
Maybe. But that's part of the whole ideological aspect of it, right? Like that's the thing. When you have this collectivist belief, you think your ally is going to have your back and stuff. Well, you should be prepared for your ally to be, you know, overthrown by the United States government and controlled. Like that, you're right. That should definitely be something they should have looked on. But what I'm saying is they never had the resources that other countries have had. And I think Russia and China should have, in that belief system of collectivism, of whatever, opposing hegemony, they should have also been quicker to do more business deals and stuff with them. I agree with the solar panel saying that should have been done a long time ago, but why wasn't it? Is it only on Cuba, or is there something to China or Russia not doing it? Do you think that they would provide these things for free? Nothing is provided for free. Things are paid for, you know, like even Venezuela receiving these weapons from Russia, they would have received more, but they had to pay for them. So and they had to be trained on these weapons. It's not like these countries are operating now on a very, you know, socialist, communist, collectivist type of basis. Maybe they were before, but not now. So I think there's, you know, if we're going to blame Cuba, there's also a lot of like blame to go around as to why people didn't protect their allies, why people, you know, aren't protecting, standing up and uniting against hegemony, because the United States is able to say, oh, stop selling oil to stop doing business with Russia, with Germany, right? They're able to tell NATO what to do. They're able to say, don't do this or that to the Gulf. And people listen and they're united in their actions. But on the other end, they're not united. So how do you compete with that? You can't.
Yeah. Well, it just seems kind of odd right now. I mean, it seems a little bit late that China's helping them out with this whole situation. But I think that China never wanted to really get involved with Cuba because it's just too close to home. And same with Russia. You know, they would kind of, after what happened in the Cuban Missile Crisis, I think the situation is like they've always kind of dealt with like Cuba with a hands-off approach. Don't get too friendly. That's on the doorstep of the Americans, and that will go crazy. And any type of negotiations for economics in the future will be hurt. But really the main enemy is the mentality of the foreign policy apparatus, the regime change war, industrial complex, which have really kind of polluted a lot of the minds of Americans. This is President Shifterbrains talking about, you know, fam, I can take Cuba. Cuba can be mine. I can do what I want with it. I'll be the one to liberate it. And you have people on his stenographers on TV repeating this shit and stuff like that. He's going to do what no other president would never do, fam. Here we are.
I think Cuba in its own way, if it, I think Cuba in its own way, if it, you know, tourism and everything else, it's a beautiful island, great weather. They're not in a hurricane zone, which is nice for a change, you know. They won't be asking us for money for hurricanes every week. But I think Cuba's the end. You know, all my life I've been hearing about the United States and Cuba. You know, when will the United States do it? I do believe I'll be having the honor of taking Cuba. That'd be good. That's a big honor.
Taking Cuba.
Taking Cuba in some form, yeah. Taking Cuba. I mean, whether I free it, take it, I think I could do anything I want with it. You want to know the truth? They're a very weakened nation right now. They were for a long time. Very violent leaders. I think Cuba.
Violent leaders. I don't know. I mean, and go right into Rubio. Rubio following up, fam, just before you make your comment, because I know you have something to say about this. Marco Rubio follows up the same type of rhetoric. We know who Marco Rubio is. This guy was confirmed 99-0, right? I think there was one vote that wasn't there that day, confirmed him in the Senate. So it just shows you that we are a war-minded, regime change, imperialist nation. The whole Senate went and confirmed this guy.
It's a non-functional economy. But the bottom line is their economy doesn't work. It's a non-functional economy. It's an economy that has survived. It's that revolution. It's not even a revolution. That thing they have has survived on subsidies from the Soviet Union and now from Venezuela. They don't get subsidies anymore, so they're in a lot of trouble. And the people in charge they don't know how to fix it, so they have to get new people in charge. But
it's fam, he's like telling the truth and lying in the same, mindset. He's lying about the ideology, kind of making this is about communism and socialism failing. That's why we have to go in there and do this, because, Donald Trump had said there's a very violent regime upholding socialism, and socialism is just a failed experiment. And that's what's going on over there. Meanwhile, he's leaking out the fact that they rely on subsidies and they don't have those subsidies anymore. But yeah, because you kidnap the goddamn fucking president of Venezuela, and you also have a blockade over there. So really, to tell you the truth, when you look at this in black and white, a lot of us would say this is more about a blockade, sanctions that are shutting them out from the global economy. And that's what's really going on. And anybody, like you said earlier, the United States has the ability to say, hey, you do business with Cuba and we'll cut you off. So, I mean, there is a battle of ideology over here that they're trying to wage in front of us. And I think a lot of Americans are buying it because they're so anti-communist and anti-socialist, man.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, it's so Donald Trump can say, yeah, I think I'll take Cuba, like, and he can do it. He can do it because nobody's going to come to Cuba's defense. And Cuba can't come to its own defense because it doesn't have the weapons, and it never did. So in the world we live in today, if you're not a country that can militarily defend itself, you're going to lose sovereignty. That's the reality of the world we live in today, which is why I'm not against the nuclear development of Iran and other countries that want to go head to head with the United States. And if you think that's crazy, well, I think it's crazy to not fight the hegemon and to just allow them to take whatever they want. Unfortunately, the majority of Latin America has, in one way or another, become dependent with the United States, and they haven't fought the United States as well as they should. And now they only fight it ideologically, diplomatically, but to a certain extent.
Yeah.
They can't compete. They can't do what Iran's doing. And so that's been the biggest mistake, I think, of the region, because now these people can take it. They can take all of it, and there's nothing anybody can do unless they were to form some sort of international alliance that is the equivalent of what people thought BRICS would be. That is actually going to militarily, physically and economically fight the United States, Israel, and whatever evil Zionist Epstein empire wants to do, which is capture everything. That's what it's going to take. And if people aren't willing to do that, you're going to see each nation pretty much become a neo-feudal state of the Epstein class, right, taking us right into 2030. And that's pretty much it. And then this international transactional, international Epstein class is not just within the United States, within Israel, but it's within all vectors of the global predator class. So, I mean, unfortunately, guys, that's what we're faced with, right? Like, what can they do at this point? It's not just Cuba. It's Colombia, it's Brazil, it's all of South America. Are they really independent from the United States? Did they really get rid of Spain to allow the Monroe Doctrine in? Yeah, I mean, that's what it's looking like.
It's the Donroe Doctrine, fam. It's been renamed after Donald Trump, the Donroe Doctrine. By the way, David Adler put this post up over here. He's from Progressive International, but he made a comment. Jayme, if you can throw that on up. And this is this is the term I've been using left and right when it talks about this is sociopathy disguised as foreign policy. Jayme, throw it on up. We are laying siege to the island of Cuba, turning off the lights in homes, hospitals, and the country's most critical infrastructure. These are war crimes, lethal, cruel, and criminal acts of collective punishment. It is sociopathy dressed up as foreign policy. And by the way, I'm going to show this real quick too as well. He did post today. The Progressive International, if you kind of click on it, let me show you right here. Right there, the convoy, fam. And I think Terry is a part of this.
Yes, Terry.
What's that?
Yes, she is.
Today, the first delegation departs for Cuba, bringing critical humanitarian aid for the island of people. And you can see they got a lot of stuff over there, a lot of aid, hopefully, food, rice, the whole 9 yards, fam. They're trying to do something, and a lot of these groups there, I might not agree with everything they do, but when they do these things, I really do appreciate them coming forth and doing this. They're kind of mimicking what Cynthia McKinney did years ago, trying to get a flotilla into Gaza, and now we see this happening over and over again. Maybe she was mimicking some other people or following somebody else's leadership and steps, but I think it's great, fam, that these people are trying to do that. We also understand they're never going to get in there, right? They're going to get grabbed. They're going to be boarded, and they're going to be sent back. But
no, I think there's a chance for some aid to get there. But a lot of these things, the reason I applaud people for trying to do something, but a lot of this, especially with Gaza, is symbolic. It becomes more about the activists than about getting the aid to the people. And people can just come at me for this, but that's the reality. I do think some people go into it for the right reasons. I wasn't aware of this. I would have gone if I could. Right now I can't, but like because it's a long process, and I do think it's important to try to get the aid there. But unfortunately, a lot of this becomes very symbolic because there's no mechanism to enforce it with the policies of the United States, and sometimes symbolism can be a good thing in certain circumstances, right? But yeah, I think a lot of people, for example, like Hassan Piker and others, probably named in the chat by Jayme, who never really cared about Cuba, never really done anything for Cuba, are now like, oh, now that it's, now we're at the breaking point. Now we're going to go and jump in and make it all about us going to Cuba and this big thing. Like, I don't know, it becomes more about like the faces and the people than it does about the Cuban people themselves. So I'm glad other people are going. I'm glad Terry's going. I'm glad people are trying to get physical aid there, doing tangibles. So just remember that that's what it's about, not about who's going.
Let me tell you something. The people who are doing this, who are actually getting on the flotilla and they're narcissists, they are a narcissist and they're doing it for themselves, for their own backing. I'll put aside the reasons why you're doing it and still tap my hat off to you if you're going to go try to physically get in there, because even if you did do it for yourself, or you're able to get some aid in there, it's going to benefit the people of Cuba. So I'll be cool with that. Fam, this is this part I wanted to bring up. This is where I want you to kind of get into this. And Jayme, when after this video, we'll get Fiorella's opinion, because we do talk about the fact that you said earlier in the segment, Russia should have been there to help Cuba out. This is one of the Russian foreign ministers, I believe, stating that they want to help out Cuba as best they can. We can lower it. We are ready to provide all possible. Hold on. We are ready to provide all possible assistance to Cuba as it faces great economic difficulties. And this is the Kremlin spokesperson, Peskov. All these issues are being worked out with the Cuban visa avis. How do you say that? Visa avis. Okay, let's play this and I'll read this. And fam, I want your opinions. Keep it nice and low, and I'll get it going. Take down the Cuba under blockade so I can read. Stop it. Start it from the beginning. Get a little volume, Jayme. All right. You know that we maintain contacts with the Cuban leadership, and at the expert and working level, we maintain contacts with our Cuban friends. Cuba is an independent, sovereign state that faces great economic difficulties due to the stifling embargo imposed on the country. Major humanitarian problems are developing in this country, and of course, we, as Russia, are ready to provide all possible. Stop. I'm sorry.
All possible assistance, and these issues are being worked out via V. Okay.
Thank you so much.
So
please, your opinions, fam.
Yeah, Russia is set to provide aid. They wouldn't say that if they weren't going to do it. But we don't know the extent of that aid, right? We don't know when it's coming. We don't know the specifics. Notice how he states Cuba is a sovereign nation, which it is, meaning that they're not going to interfere in any military way or form or capacity. So Russia is going to provide something, but it's in the process. Russia and Cuba have a long-standing relationship that dates back, of course, as you all know, to the Soviet Union, where it was the strongest at that point, right? You have statues of Fidel Castro that I visited in Moscow. Hugo Chavez also has one there. So these relationships do have some sort of historic or symbolic, importance. But the reality is, right now, is Russia going to go after the U.S. and try to get, Cuba things when it endangers their potential negotiations with Ukraine? No. Regarding Ukraine, no, they're not. They're going to do what they can, because it also matters for them as who they are, who they represent. But we don't really know the extent. We've been talking about Russian oil getting there, whereas the Russian oil, it never got there. This is what I mean. Like, a lot of this stuff, like, yeah, they're doing it, they're working it out, but there's no urgency to it, and like, I think it's it shouldn't be that way because they should be more urgent about it. Mexico is able to send aid. Why can't Russia? Russia, like I said, has this historic relationship. Okay, Mexico's closer, but Mexico also has a more involved relationship with the United States than Russia does. So, there's kind of things that can be done by China and Russia that are not being done with a sense of urgency that there should be. So I really hope that they do work it out via V, and I really hope that they do get it fixed ASAP.
Yeah. Well, it does seem like, once again, it's a little bit too late. I mean, they went in there and they pulled in there with a nuclear ballistic sub and an aircraft carrier of sorts into Cuba. I felt like they were doing that to antagonize the United States. So just sometimes using Cuba the way they are, you know what I'm saying, almost as a pawn, of poking at the United States is upsetting, because really, to tell you the truth, we would assume, and, I've been to Cuba. There's a lot of Russian influence over there. You can see it, statues, whatnot. You think they would have been in there quite some time helping them out. But if it doesn't serve their interest, I think you've kind of explained that, and a lot of people can understand that now. If it doesn't serve Russia's interest at the moment in time, expect very little for them, especially since it's right on our doorstep. Fam, for them to continue to sell this, there has to be a large amount. And I have this argument with my libertarian friends all the time, as far as what's going on. But, a lot of them still say that's a country's national sovereignty is a country's national sovereignty. They have a right to pick whatever system they want to use, and that's up to them. Let the people of Cuba decide. Don't get involved. However, there are people on the right who are cheering this on, who are trying to justify the Donald Trump presidency by saying what he is doing is more about liberating these countries, not going and starving them. Right? He's freeing them from their chains. I think this is who is this here to put this post up? This is Eric Doherty, I believe. Jayme, let's throw it up. Mario on the wall was first. Okay. Jayme, go back to the first one. Okay, Cuba enters the 8th straight night without power, and protests spread across the island. No fuel shipments in 3 months. Bakeries running on firewood. And now Havana is talking to Washington for the first time because they have no other choice. And, it just shows people running around kind of making it look like, okay, these people want to be liberated. You can put the volume up, get some volume on this. But, once again, you see younger people running through the streets, fam. They kind of want to project this image that people are like now, what Donald Trump was saying, like, oh no, there are anti-government Iranians in the street. Now there are anti-government Cubans in the street. They want to be freed, and I'm going to bring them, free them. I can do what I want with it. I can take Cuba, fam. The honor will be mine. Eric Doherty next. Jayme, you can throw that one up. Epic, massive line of patriots in New Jersey waving the Cuban American flags as President Trump and Marco Rubio on the verge of freeing Cuba. This is going to be historic. And they show, a picture here in New Jersey. These are all the people who got thrown out of the country years ago. You can put volume on it, Jayme. There you go. They're beeping. They're going crazy in the streets. That's not a lot of people, but these are the anti-governmental Cubans who are now, they're here. You can see they want freedom. And Eric Doherty's last tweet I put up too as well. You have a bunch of people who are kind of trying to use this to their advantage as well. Should be one more. That's it. All right, if that's it. But I mean, that's what's going on over there. I think it was. I didn't feel. I thought I had another one up. Yeah, but that's Eric Doherty's put up a lot of other stuff about him freeing Cuba and whatnot. And you have all these people, all these characters out there, fam. They're trying to portray this image that this is socialism and communism failing, and the United States and its capitalist system is coming to the rescue. And that's what they're trying to portray on the mainstream media news. Please get some final comments on this section right now as we get on out and get into the last subject, which I think is really important as we talk about our Give, Send, Go and what we're trying to do and what we're trying to accomplish. But go ahead, fam.
No, I mean, I just think it's unfortunate what's happening. I think a lot of the Cuban people are willing to, go down fighting, but I think ultimately what the government might do just to save, any sort of more negativity, more destruction, more lack of just resources coming to the island is going to have to make a deal with the United States. I mean, the same way Delcy Rodriguez did. Venezuela could have done more than Cuba. Cuba has withstood for a long time, despite all efforts against it. So yeah, I think it's pretty much just so vulnerable, especially after Venezuela, and that's why they did it that way, right? We talked
Yeah.
about why Venezuela first. Well, they got to get Venezuela. That's the bigger threat. Cuba
Yeah.
isn't really a threat. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Guys, if you want to help us out, Cuba is under blockade, but we're real independent journalists and we're looking to do work on elections, other issues, whatnot. We have 42 gives and 25 shares. We're around 2177, I think it is. And we're going to start tapping into this right now as I get out to Peru. Peru sits on the lithium triangle. The last several presidents who tried to change the constitution, nationalized that lithium to be used for the benefit of the Peruvian people, have been thrown in jail. The CIA has shown up, and they're going to make sure that they can solidify in keeping that lithium, the United States, the West, right? This is we'll coup who we want to coup, people. We got to get out there. We got to get stories. We got to talk to people. It's more than just covering the elections. And there is a big push to kind of say that Iran and Venezuela have been swaying our elections. Tulsi Gabbard today was doing a hearing talking about what's going on as far as these other countries and whatnot. But it seems like she was tasked to talk to Nicolas Maduro, and they still want to have this image that, Venezuela is stealing our elections. It's beyond ridiculous. This makes any type of QAnon theory out there just over the top. A lot of these countries, when we go to Latin America, they have clean, transparent elections. Why? Because they want to show that they have their national sovereignty, and they want to demonstrate that they are actually a democracy, and we are not. We're controlled opposition, fam. So if you guys can help out, 42 gives, 25 shares. It is givesendgo.com/election integrity matters. I'm going to put that in the chat. Guys, if you can give, please share. We need your help with this, and you guys have been amazing. And once again, we're not getting money from any big entity, any type of corporation, any type of outlet, any type of country. It's just you and I, you and us and yous, whatever you want to tell, however you want to dice it up. But it's very important. Fam, my question to you right now as we get ready to start the next segment, why would America turn a lot of its attention to going into, where's this at? I'm trying to take this off. Where's the Give, Send, Go one? I'm trying to take it off. I don't know. Thank you. Why would America turn its attention to Latin America? Why is it Latin America so important to dominate? Some people will say it's about resource extraction, but is there more to it than that? Because we're going to talk about Ecuador right now and what the United States is trying to further do in this region.
I mean, I would say number one, it is resource extraction because they have the most minerals, the most rare earth and natural resources compared to other parts of the world. I mean, you can see the same in Africa, which is why there's been also, and there is an attempt to, once again, take back the resources there, the mining industry, the diamond industry. So that's pretty much what drives us to do whatever we do. And so we see China has pretty much taken leadership in the AI, tech, and surveillance field. And we want to compete with that. We don't want to lag behind. So I think that's the number one reason. The other reason, though, is that the Latin American countries, a lot of them have come from a very a mindset that stands against colonialism, right? They've had multiple leaders, multiple revolutions that have actually liberated them, starting with, of course, the liberator Simón Bolívar, who liberated much of South America from the Spanish, and people died and fought for a long time, even before Bolívar got there, to make that happen. And then after that, of course, each country reached independence. And then after that, though, is when you saw the Monroe Doctrine come into play, Operation Condor, right? We've seen the also Iran-Contra, all of this target Latin American countries and be pushed back. We have seen the pushback from Cuba, from Venezuela, from Nicaragua. For a long time, we saw the pushback with Allende in Chile. And we've seen just in general, Brazil also come back, Mexico, the entire region essentially, and that also serves as a threat. Haiti as well was the prime example of that, a little island that managed to overthrow a very powerful government that existed for a very long time, the French. And they don't like this spirit. They don't like that idea that these people can, fight back. And right now, Donald Trump is operating under the auspices that these are shithole countries that can't get their shit together. But the reality is that for the longest time, all of these countries have been, in one way or another, in a form of control by the United States, or they've been sanctioned and punished for not being allowed to be controlled and manipulated by the United States.
Do you think that, and it's funny that you say that too as well. Before I get to my next question, right, because it's important to answer these things. I think a lot of people, and I know Friendly Brilliance probably have an opinion about this in the chat, and want to thank all those people out there who've been supporting the show for quite some time. And if you want to know how to lose weight, it's diet. Diet is so much important. That's how I lost the weight, and that's how you got to keep it off. So you got to find a happy medium there. But there's a friend of mine, fam, when we talked about Somalia, right, and talking about bombing Somalia and taking their rare earth minerals, that person would say, well, what the hell are they going to do with those rare earth minerals? It's better we take them anyways before the Chinese get it. I think there's something that we have this kind of American conceptualism to say that it's okay for us to take this. And, because at the end of the day, it's not about making our lives, the common folk over here. It's not like they're stealing all these resources and then sharing it with us. They're taking it for themselves. And, Americans, their standard of living keeps going further down in the toilet. But my question to you is, fam, is there any fight or pushback? And the reason why we would take some of these countries and make sure that the world sees that they're failing social experiments when it comes to socialism or communism is that the empire wants to make sure that the American citizens don't see any form of collectivism succeeding, whether it be, universal health care or a jobs program or free education and stuff like that. Do you think that there's something to that? The fact that if we destroy these countries, that we won't ask for nice things the way some of these other countries get nice things?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's part of the resistance aspect, right? That they don't like about Iran as well, the Middle East or West Asia. That's part of the whole reality that really encapsulates, I think, much of Latin America. Even people like Gustavo Petro, who are pretty, milquetoast, they have that spirit within them. People like Lula da Silva, like what AMLO represented and what now the new Mexican president Sheinbaum also represents. I think there's still too much pushback for them, too much of this idea that the wealth should be for the people of the region, too much of this idea that we can provide for our people better. That mentality has been stripped away in the United States. We used to have that with unions. We used to have that with, more money being put towards education. Now education and healthcare are entirely privatized. Yeah. And so, they don't want people to think that that's a possibility. And I think that is a huge part of it.
Me too. So I think they're trying to push for a civil war in Ecuador, right? That's what they always try to do. They're trying to do it in Lebanon. So splitting the people. I don't know if you remember this from Afshin Rattanzi, but this was from our good friend, Jayme. Ecuador has voted resoundingly in a referendum to block U.S. puppet President Daniel Noboa's plan to allow 4 military bases in the country. Obviously, those military bases would have been U.S. bases, right? Some of them might have been Israel bases too, by the way. 60.6% of the country voted to reject Noboa's plans, which is a major setback for the U.S. plan to bring Latin America to heel and reestablish hemispheric hegemony. As it loses Latin America increasingly to China and the rest of the BRICS, with its hegemony in the rest of the world crumbling under the weight of its own lies, bombs, and hypocrisy. And that's our good friend. Is that Morales, I believe, fam?
Huh?
Go down to, is that Morales? The other way, Jayme. Up to the top, yeah. Okay, I don't know who that is there in the picture, fam. I don't know if that was not Morales. What's his name? The leader of Ecuador a few years ago. Carry on. You know who I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
The guy who gave Julian Assange.
No.
That's not him. Okay. Your thoughts so far, fam, when we see the fact that they tried to reject the fact that these bases are coming in, but now they are starting to come in. and there's a lot of military action going on, especially Ecuador. Ecuador seems a place where Correa, thank you so much, Correa. I thought it was Correa. It's not Correa. But when Correa left and
Correa, fam.
Correa, yeah, I can't remember who placed Correa, but he was definitely a sheep in wolf's clothing, and everything changed. Julian Assange was then given over, contracts were then signed. A lot of people in Ecuador resisted this, pushed back, got into the streets. And once again, when you talk about countries where you can, like Iran, where you could talk to everybody because they're more knowledgeable about what's going on, I would believe that Ecuador is one of those countries. They had a bigger rally for Julian Assange getting turned over to the West than the United States did. You know what I'm saying? So I know they're trying to push for some type of civil war. This is Kyle Anzalone for the Libertarian Institution that I'm going to pull up right now, fam. And once again, I think it's also good to look at, sometimes the reason why I look at a lot of libertarian stuff, and we can put this up, Jayme, is because, all right, so if you want to take the leftists out of it, if you want to take out the social sympathizers that we are, let's look from a libertarian and see what the libertarian is saying about what's going on. So you have people like the Scott Hortons, whatnot. Ecuador says it will begin law enforcement operations against criminal activity in 3 regions with U.S. support. Ecuador is a member of the U.S.-led anti-cartel coalition in Latin America. And we've said this before, fam. The excuse for going after the cartels is more about regime change in this region. It's not the cartels they're fearful of. It's these governments and their national sovereignty that will lean towards more looking to do business with China and Russia. That's what it's about. It's about American hegemony, not cartels. Ecuadorian Interior Minister John Reinberg explained that the U.S. was providing logistical support for the criminal crackdown. He requested that people in 3 provinces comply with a nightly curfew from March 15th to March 30th. We do not, and that's going on right now, we do not want collateral victims from the attacks we are about to launch, Reinberg said. We have significant support from U.S. forces for the operations we are about to carry out. Last week, Trump announced that new military organization, along with Latin American leaders at his Doral resort in Florida, dubbed Shield of the Americans, fam. So we're fighting back against China. Ecuador is one of a dozen Latin American countries to join this bloc. Earlier this month, the U.S. conducted joint operations in Ecuador. Department of War spokesperson Sean Parnell said that the U.S. soldiers worked with the Ecuadorian military to take down a drug smuggling facility. Narco-terrorists, fam. Narco-terrorists. It is unclear if there were casualties. They're keeping quiet. The casualties everywhere, fam. Under President Trump, the U.S. has ramped up military activity in Latin America. The Department of War has conducted strikes on dozens of alleged drug vessels in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific, killing over 150 people. The U.S. has also attacked Venezuela and kidnapped President Nicolas Maduro, fam. When you hear this stuff right out of the bat, once again, I went away from the lefty news channels and showed you what they're doing military-wise. This is from the Libertarian Institute, our good friend Kyle Anzalone. I did this on purpose because even there is a block that's going, what the fuck is going on over here? More narco-terrorists now? Now they're going and they're running around in Ecuador. They want to do this everywhere. And this is all your tax dollars that they're spending this money on, fam. Go right ahead.
Well, so I think the whole entirety of the continent is what they want to do this to, right? Like, this is just like a beginning. Ecuador was already captured, fam. Ecuador has a right-wing government that is captured by the United States. I mean, they're already interfered with. The moment people decided to say, wait a minute, no, we're not going to allow this to happen, what happens? Chaos, more using that destruction and that lack of organization within Latin America in order to, of course, have more intervention and more U.S. forces get involved. And Ecuador is really close to Peru. It's close to Colombia. And I think there's also something to that. The other thing that we have to look at is Israel's role in South America. When Milei came into power, he managed to boost the relationship between Israel and Argentina. And there's also been a recent study, I can't find it, or a recent article that talked about how he is now very strongly pushing for Israelis to be accepted into Argentina coming from the war in Iran. And what does that say when Zionists have been accused of starting the fire in the Galapagos and in the south of Argentina? And what does that say with the capturing of wealth by the United States and Israel? Well, it says that it's not just limited to West Asia. It's actually very much ingrained in the Americas, not just North, but also South. And that's what they're trying to do also, is put Israelis and Zionists in positions of power, which, by the way, they've been going to Argentina and Chile for a long time. These Zionists, wealthy figures, and they want to Palantirize and control Latin American countries that right now don't have the digitalization. Like here, things are a little bit backed and digitalized, like they are like in the United States and in Europe and even in Russia and China. So they kind of want to start pushing that and setting that in. So I think this is also a huge part of that. The more bases, the more eyes, the more control from these Epstein Empire syndicates, the more they can quickly just take over. And this is not an exaggeration. This stuff is happening right now in real time.
Yeah. Malayakowski. Javier Malayakowski is what our good friend Hugo was saying. I think that's great. He made sure Malayakowski, he made sure he respelt it over here for you properly. Whatever. That's kind of cute. And yeah, they've handed over everything to BlackRock. And the thing that they're discussing today on the internet, fam, is that Javier Milei has pulled out Argentina from the WHO. And that's what the right wingers are stating right now. At the behest of, at the direction of Donald Trump, all these idiots like Nick Sorter and Eric Doherty and all these jerk-offs we show. Fam, they're not the only jerk-offs in the mainstream media. The Fox News channel loves to support war no matter what. We can't forget who they are. They're pro-neocons. That's the whole thing we're seeing right now, is that we had a portion of the left. Every single Democratic congressional member, senator, is all for the war in Russia, Ukraine, right? We've seen them turn into the neocons now too as well. And it seems like each party has their own war area they want to go, but they're all neocons at the end of the day. The military industrial complex is still flowing. Fox News has always been a big part of that. Here's Fox News once again selling this as you have to be careful, because if we don't do this, fam, the cartel members are going to come into your house and kill you. So that's why we're doing that. Here's Fox News. South America strike. The U.S. military carried out targeted strike against narco-terrorist network as part of a joint operation with Ecuador, and the U.S. Southern Command said. We are bombing narco-terrorists on land as well, War Secretary Pete Hegseth said. Here, take a look. This is Fox News. Jank it up the sound, though. I can just imagine hearing those blast. So that's it. That was a quick little video. But once again, the military is there. You can see this is military-grade weapons on poor-ass people in Latin America, fam. And, you can always count on Fox News to be there for you. But the final straw I want to talk about is that, I don't know if you remember in Ukraine, you have all this shit going on. You bring in the West. You use their weapons. Chaos is going crazy. You can suspend elections. But before you suspend elections, you got to suspend the opposition party. What did they do in Ecuador, fam? They suspended the country's largest oppositional party. And we can throw that up. This is from the Center for Economics and Policy, whatnot. This is what they did. They suspended the country's largest opposition party. This was last week, fam.
Because there's a lot of pushback in Ecuador against this current government. And there's been a lot of protests, a lot of, chaos, because people are sick of the austerity measures. They're sick of the corruption. They're sick of where this government has taken them. And so they've been pushing back. And of course, what does the United States do? Push for military bases and intervention. So to control it, yes, to make it look like they're saving Ecuador, but really they destabilize it in order to save it.
And it's always good to get information from Washington, D.C. when you're talking about Ecuador. Acting on the request of the government-aligned prosecutor general, an electoral judge in Ecuador on Friday ordered the 9-month suspension of the country's largest opposition party, the Citizens' Revolution. The Center for Economic and Policy Research condemns the ban, which coincides exactly with the registration timeline for candidates and the 2027 local elections, effectively preventing the party from participating in the electoral process. The government of the president, Daniel Noboa, who's tied in with the drug cartels himself, who is strongly backed by President Trump, is trying to accelerate the destruction of what is left of democracy in Ecuador, said the CEPR co-director, Mark Weisbrot. So, fam, there you can see they're eliminating the party altogether, and they're making sure that the West continues to have their strong power, gets their bases, uses their military might, and you, Joe taxpayer, has to pay for it, fam. Final thoughts on the last section of the day.
Yeah. Well, I want to show this little bit just to remind everybody of what I'm talking about here. This started with Javier Milei in Argentina.
Milei Kowalski.
Yeah, well, so he had launched, this was last year, a group to boost Israel Latin American ties. This is, this should be something that I think everybody should know. This isn't just about, the Middle East or West Asia and Israel being there. This is more so about in general, the takeover. And it's not, I'm not saying it's just the Zionists relegated to Israel. This is precisely why I'm not saying that, right? This is precisely why I'm talking about how it's much more than that. It's an entire international class of people that are going to try to take this over. And Argentina is a very, very effective place for this to occur because they've already had that exist. So, yeah.
Guys, that's it for the show today. We want to thank you all for coming on in and helping on out. This is the TruthWire, formerly known as the Convo Couch. I am Craig Pasta Jardula for Fiorella Isabel and Jayme CheeseSlice. We want to thank you guys for coming on. Remember, we do have a Give, Send, Go that you can come out and help. If you can't give us a share. That share is at 25. Let's get that share to at least 30, guys, because if we share it out there, we'll find people who have a few bucks that want to donate to independent media to get the truth out there, because it's very important. There are groups like Danny Shaw, him doing his work out there, you know what I'm saying? Our show, of course, as well. Matt Weinglass. We need your help, guys. We're getting no money from any government, no money from any corporate entity, because we want to be able to bring you the truth and bring you the actual news that's out there instead of the propaganda that they're pushing nowadays. So, fam, any last words before we get on out of here today? And I think we did have Jayme, we did have a Rumble rant, right?
Yeah, we did. Somebody kept posting in the chat that there's a Rumble rant. If you can find that before we go, that would be great.
Yeah, have it Rumble. This is for Meteor Dreams. Guys, this is a bit of a topic, but what do you guys think of all the diaspora? How do you say it? Diaspora wars, especially the FBA's being so hostile to Latinos and celebrating what ICE is doing. I've seen black people cheering deport. Yeah, there are a group of black people in the United States who are down or anti-immigrant, who've kind of been duped to thinking that immigrants are taking their job, and that's why they're lashing out against them. Dude, nowadays, it really is. It's all about imperialism and anti-imperialism. It's not about right and left, whatnot, so people are going to be duped. We have to remember that Donald Trump got more black people to vote for him than any Republican president since Nixon. So that's something to take in there. And why is that happening? Because the propaganda of splitting the Americans, the United States, is working in some instances, fam. But do you have anything to say about this?
Not really. I mean, I think that it's just age old. I mean, tale as old as wine, right? Like, they're going to use different groups to divide people and get them at each other. Like, while there's black people mad at Latino people for quote unquote taking their jobs, there's going to be Latino people mad at Latino people for quote unquote taking their jobs. Just different generations, different statuses of legalization that exists already. It's no different. We just have to remind people that, the real enemy is clearly the Epstein predator class. Let's just call them that from now on, right? Like, that's the real enemy. They're never held accountable. You're not going to see them behind bars. You're only going to see the bottom of the totem pole there. There was this video I saw on TikTok that talked about how, like, people think presidents have the most power, and they're the top tier of society. They're not. They're puppets. They're go-tos for the people who really have who have the power. And those people live in the shadows. Those people, you don't really know who they are, or if you know who they are, you never really catch them somewhere. You never really see them in these circumstances. And that's the people who really have the power. And they manipulate us against each other. So that's just another form of this. And yeah, and the last thing I just want to say is, and bring up is, yeah, this is actually a really good graphic, actually, how this works. Because this has a lot to do with how these things are really it, right? Elected officials are not really at the top at all. And when they're sitting with the billionaires, they're at the bottom. And I just want people to understand that, you know, when people say, well, all we have to do is just get rid of Donald Trump, impeach him, and then, you know, that'll be advancement. No, it won't. That's not going to do anything for us. They're just going to replace him with somebody else. We really have to attack the core problem, the core issue. If you think Donald Trump is the main problem, or Bibi Netanyahu even is the main problem, it's not. This is what Iran already understands that a lot of people don't in the United States. It's not about eliminating the leadership if you already have a system structured to continue that mission. The United States has that system on the other end, on the evil end of the spectrum. It's not just the United States, but you know, as a major leader, they have that. The last thing I want to show is this. I want to.
By the way, what does FBA stand for, fam?
What?
When they say FBAs?
FBAs?
FBAs.
Are you talking about this?
No. It was in one of the chats. It said FBAs.
I don't know.
Being so hostile. I don't know. Can somebody help me out? Because I looked it up in Chat GPT and it said fulfillment by Amazon, Foreign Business Administration, Federal Bureau of Alcohol, or fixed-based operator. So it's fulfillment by Amazon, right?
I don't think so.
What does FBA stand for, guys? Let us know in the chat.
Them abbreviating a very long phrase. Okay. Foundation.
Okay. Thank you so much for educating us.
Because they are American, right? Yes. I mean, everybody's an American, like if you're a U.S. citizen. But for example, people have been here longer generations, whether they're foundational Black Americans or whether they're, you know, fifth generation Mexicans. You're going to see them have a different position than people who just came in. You know, like there's a difference, and there's a difference based on just culture, history, and most of all, the immediate areas of importance. People who come here to the United States most recently have a different perspective than people who have been here a while. You know, it's just the reality. They feel themselves to be part of the Americans that are being endangered by an influx of immigrants. So they're more easily swayed to the right, which is why you see a lot of these, you know, fifth, second, third, fourth generation Latinos who go to the right rather than like a first generation Latino or second generation Latino. So same with people, you know, who are Black Americans who have been here for a long time, who, for example, never got reparations. They feel like, well, if anybody's entitled to something, it's us. We were slaves, you know, we were here before. But all of these things get in the way of us going after the ultimate enemy.
So there are talks, fam, that the Cuban electrical grid is back on. Somebody's talking about that. So that's a good positive right now. If that happens, and if they can keep it going, that's going to be great. I think that's amazing that they were able to do that. Let's hope that more help is on the way. So I just wanted to kind of point that out. And fam, also, we never really talked about, and I just wanted to get your opinion on this, because there was talks that if America keeps hitting Iran's oil infrastructure, that Iran's going to go out and hit the Gulf oil industry, hit their energy infrastructure. What does that really mean to the region? Because we've seen that now Iran got bombed at an oil field or a natural gas plant again today, and they're going to respond back and hit all the energy grids of these Gulf states. What's that going to mean for the region?
What are you talking about?
The fact is that Iran says, if you're going to go after our energy infrastructure, we're going to go after the Gulf's energy infrastructure. Yeah. Isn't that going to be really, really, really bad if that happens?
For who?
For the Gulf states. I mean, what's going to mean for them? Are they going to have uprisings over there? Or what's going to happen?
I mean, I think kind of like that's what Iran wants, right?
Yeah.
Like
That's what I think they're pushing
because Bahrain is already there. Like
Yeah.
most people in Bahrain already are sick of the
Monarchy.
US Israeli monarchy. Yeah, they're not with it. And they're hoping like more people. They've actually laid out several statements directly. I think it was Larijani, or it was one of them that laid out several statements directly talking to Muslims and Arabs. We're talking to you. You're next. This is going to happen to you. Don't think that they're going to be your allies for long. They're going to turn around and do what they're doing to us to you. So you should probably pick the side that's going to defend you, right? Not the side that is just using you, essentially, is what they were saying, right? Yeah. And on regard, the last thing to the foundational Black Americans, I've known them as ADOS. Okay. So
American
that's
descendants of slaves.
Yeah, that's usually what I've known them as. I think ADOS also has had different positions from even back when it was we were talking about abolishing police and all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Like there's different positions that people take. There's some people that have more, like Black Lives Matter, more like liberal positions, and there's people that have like more what is considered radical positions, which to me isn't radical. I mean, people should have been paid reparations a long time ago. Israelis were paid reparations to the max, right? So yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to be said about that. But I am making the statement that when people have been in the United States a long time, they adopt the American U.S. culture. They adopt the American U.S. lifestyle. You're different than somebody that just came in from the United States. You have different needs, different desires, different perspectives. And the people who have been here a long time, they have less attachment to Latin America or the Latin American countries they came from. And that's the same thing with people who have been here, whether they're Black, whether they're Asian, whether they're whatever. It's the same exact thing. It doesn't matter what ethnicity you are, which country you come from. That's what makes up America, is the fact that there are people from all sorts of parts of the world that have this identity to them. And depending on how they view that identity, and they're also identity to their other, to the places where they're also from, or their families from, that definitely changes the way things are. So that's all I want to say on that. And I want to put this here. Vanessa and I talk about the geopolitical chessboard, understanding China and Russia's shifting alliances, and the Epstein war in Iran. You guys should take a look. It's not a long article, but it's like a 1 hour podcast. And we talk a lot about pretty much China and Russia and what they're doing, and the UNSC vote and how that came about. Craig Mokiber, who left the UN in protest of what was not being done in Gaza, is actually one of the most principled people that should be in the UN, but isn't. And the reason being is because he actually says it like it is. Okay. And I think people like that are the ones that should be at the UN. People that don't have any quells to say what needs to be said when people don't do the right thing. Yeah. It is absolutely wrong that China and Russia didn't use their veto on this. I don't care how many people try to justify it or how they say, well, it's not important. Well, yeah, it's not an important institution now, but you all sure as hell do uphold it when they do something good. So you can't have it both ways. It is important according to international law, and international law doesn't exist, right? So it's like, well, if international law doesn't exist, then why do we have to be thrown this cosplay, this theatrics every single day for it, right? It's just, I'm just sick of it. So yeah, take a look at that. It really dives deep into what is actually happening in terms of the relationships between China and Russia, and why they're doing what they're doing. So.
Yep. All right, guys, that's it for today. We're pushing. I got a show in about 40 minutes, less than 40 minutes on WBAI Drive Time, the call-in show. You can come on in and call in. It's 212-209-2877, 212-209-2877. We're going to have some fun on that show today. There's a lot of things to talk about, so you can do that. Fam is just showing you some of the work she's been doing with Vanessa Beeley. Go ahead and help out in there. And on Friday, we're going to have Dennis Kucinich on, by the way. Just booked. Forgot to tell you, fam. Dennis Kucinich is now booked for Friday at 1:15, so he'll be on the show talking with the TruthWire about what's going on. So we want to thank you all for coming there and hanging on out. Guys, do us a favor. Go over to our GiveSendGo, givesendgo.com/election integrity matters. If you can't give us any money, give us a share. That really does help us out. We are hitting the ground running. We're going to be going to Peru soon, or somebody's already there, but I will be going to Peru soon, and we will be covering the elections. It's going to be really important because there's a lot going on. There is a dash, right? A sprint right now to get control of these countries in Latin America, as we see what we talked about in Ecuador and Cuba today, because America wants the resources. They want to control the hemisphere. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and we need to get you ahead of this story right now by getting on the ground, especially when it comes to them trying to obtain or grab or keep their national sovereignty. So I am Craig Pasta Jardulo for Fiorella Isabel, Jayme CheeseSlice on the 1 to 2. To all our lovely producers out there, we love you. We thank you. Keep fighting. This is the TruthWire. We'll see you on Friday with Dennis Kucinich. Truth out.
Bye.